Story 1. Family begs me to keep being the good child and mediate, but after years of trauma, I've hit my limit. First off, this is one of my first posts, so please forgive me for any mistakes. Some context. My mother has 2 children, me, 24F, and my younger sister, 15F. Her and my dad were never together, but when she got pregnant with my sister all those years ago, she married my stepfather out of wedlock. My stepfather is much, much older and was pretty wealthy at the time. When my mother decided to marry my stepdad, she packed me up and moved us 4 hours away from my grandparents, my primary caregivers since I was born, and my dad. I won't get too far into what my life was like after I moved in, but it is worth mentioning I suffer from diagnosed CPTSD and severe anxiety from my years of living with them. My sister never had a chance from the start. She's been spoiled. Not just spoiled, spoiled rotten. As the years went on, I tried to tell my mother and stepdad that she would not just grow out of it like they said she would. I've had friends compare her to Veruca from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. She screams, throws things, hits people, threatens to lie to CPS, calls our mother a whore, fat cow, slut, depressed loser, and calls her father an old man. For heaven's sake, she called her 95-year-old grandmother old and stomped on her other grandmother's foot. She is out of control. What is done about this? Well, their idea of discipline is nothing. Her dad is considerably older and doesn't want to make her hate him for the short amount of time he has left with her. So he leaves the discipline to our mother, who is mentally very unstable and crumbles easily. Because my sister is so outwardly difficult, I've always been revered as the good child. To be clear, me being the good child included my silence and compliance. I had to be responsible and mature for my age because my stepdad and mother were not. Because of this and some guilt, my mother and stepfather have always overly relied on me. I'm the one who placates, who mediates, who tried to parent their kid but was constantly undermined. It caused me to have several severe relationship issues as an adult. After high school, I moved out and went to college. I attended therapy and started to learn that my people-pleasing from living with them was crippling me, so I've slowly started stopping. The last key component to the context is this. They, my mom and stepdad, do not support me. Even when I lived with them in high school, every dime for lunch money or new clothes came from my grandparents. Even my car was given to me by my grandparents at 18. They've paid 1 semester of my college, roughly $2,500, and to their credit, they did pay for my braces when I was 10. However, this pales when compared to the $10,000 plus per semester they spend on her private school tuition, her $1,100 monthly allowance they put on her debit card, her new Porsche, which she can't even drive yet, plus so much more. My mother even asked me to give up my birthday last year to attend my sister's cheer nationals in Florida, which I did to be a good sister. But there was no such thing for me when I was in high school. For the record, I understand most of this money is my wealthy stepdad's. I am not delusional to the fact that I am not his kid and therefore shouldn't expect support from him. However, they expect me to support them. Now I'm at a head. I've always relented and gone to my mother's house on Christmas Eve to wake up and open gifts Christmas morning because it's important to her. But I don't believe I'm there because she wants me to be, but mostly so I can mitigate. My sister always makes a spectacle of Christmas Eve. Last year, our mother put $4,400 worth of gifts under the tree for her and me, both. My sister was not happy with a single gift she asked for. I'm talking screaming, throwing gifts in the trash, biting, scratching, all at 14 years old. Christmas Day has always ended in screaming and tears. I hate Christmas because of this. This year, I wanted to spend it with my grandparents and see my dad over the holiday. This was not taken well. I got told by my grandmother that I'm the only thing keeping my mom sane. It was implied a good kid would want to spend time with her family and sister on Christmas. I told her that my younger sister has gotten so much more than me. Money, opportunities, support, etc., and she gets to be horrible to our mother and get rewarded for it. Why should I be the good kid if I'm not getting anything in return? Why should I spend a holiday with family that makes it horrible over my grandparents who are actually supporting me? My grandma said that this was a horrible thing to say. She begged me not to say this to my mother and to just put up with it. This is not how my grandparents raised me to be or think. But it's not so much about the money as it is just the blatant usage of me. Some part of me feels greedy and spoiled for being upset over the difference in support, but somehow it still feels so wrong to keep giving in to them. What's keeping me at bay is that my grandparents have never steered me wrong. But I sometimes wonder if what was done to me gets forgotten about because my mother is mentally ill and does suffer. And my sister is like this because it's all she's ever known. I can't help but feel like I can't relent on this one, though, that my boundaries are being trampled. So, AITA for wanting to say this to my mother? If yes, what else do I do? Thank you in advance for reading. Comments where OP has replied. Comment, you want to be paid to go to her house for Christmas? Look, go be happy, but that is just not a good move. Essentially losing all class and character and blackmailing for your attendance. Just don't go. NTA for not wanting to go. But you would be if you paid that pay me card. OP, I'm not asking for monetary gain. I'm asking them to stop using me as their support. Financial, emotional, etc. When they haven't shown me any since I moved in with them at 10 years old. It's always been this big deal of, well, you came out of it a better person, and they can't help it, and you're out of it now. But I'm still suffering from the damage they caused. My sister suffers, my grandparents suffer, they suffer, but instead of owning up to anything, they'd all rather pretend to have another happy Christmas. I'm ready to bring everything to a head, but then comes the hard truth. I can't be the golden child with nothing in return but misery. Comment, which grandma is this? Why doesn't she support you being independent from your mother in trauma? You won't have them forever. Why don't they want you to spend time with those who love you instead of your spoiled sister? Opie, these are my maternal grandparents, although my grandpa is not my blood grandpa and not my mom's biological dad. Her dad denounced her on his deathbed. My mother has always had this jealousy when it comes to my grandparents, my grandma in particular. Under the influence, she's told me several times, I'm sorry I wasn't the mother you needed. Or, I'm your mom. Not her, my grandmother. I think grandma's parents from guilt a lot for my mom because she's mentally ill and was an addict. We all sympathize with my mom and her situation, not being stable and stuck in a marriage we don't think she'd ever choose to be in now. However, I, for some reason, get the brunt of bearing the emotional load. My grandma does try to lessen it, but my mom wants me because having me around lessens her guilt. Comment, another part of the problem is that your grandparents are asking you to do this to support your mother, their daughter. I'm guessing it might be worth explaining that you need a break or you're going to snap, and you don't want to add more drama to an already fraught situation. Frame it as a temporary break to your grandparents, just to get some breathing space until your mother's current family unit finds a new balance, which will probably end up being never, but at least it gives you time. And if they insist, suggest that they go and support your mother while you spend Christmas with your dad. If they want her ease so much, they don't want to deal with your sister either. That should help them understand what they're asking you. Opie. Yes, this is a big part of the problem. My grandparents have done so much for me that they shouldn't have had to do because I'm not their child. Yet they did. I will forever be indebted to them, and if they ask anything of me, I agree without hesitation. So what this situation really boils down to is that if I'm not there, the drama and emotional burden falls on my grandmother. She's elderly, sickly, and I just can't let that happen without some sort of plan. Update 1, January 30th, 2024. I took a lot of advice from my original post and figured I should update here. Christmas went unexpectedly well, but not for the reasons one would think. I ended up not saying anything harsh to my mother. I stayed with my grandparents as long as I could, then made the 3-hour drive up to my mother and stepdad's. My stepdad's family has always been so kind and treated me like family, so I enjoyed going over there and spending time with them. My mother and stepdad left the get-together early on Christmas Eve. Come to find out, my sister had opened all of her gifts earlier, the day before I got there. When she realized she didn't get everything she wanted, she took a couple of my presents and threw them in the pool. Luckily, I asked for a lot of cat toys for my cats, and those were the things she threw in. They were fine after they dried. I spent the night with my mother and stepdad while my sister stayed with her aunt and cousins, and I opened my presents peacefully on Christmas morning before heading to see my dad. All things considered, It was a nice holiday compared to the others we've had. What comes after is, unfortunately, not an improvement. It seems like my sister's behavior is on a steady decline. For some context, last year, my sister messaged me with a picture of her with a fat lip, saying our mom hurt her. I was so angry. I called her aunt to pick her up and told her she was not allowed to go back, and if they had a problem, I would call the cops. When talking to my mother, she had a severe black eye, where my sister had attacked her. I didn't care who started it. I just thought it should never have escalated to that. She spent the summer with her aunt. CPS investigated and found no abuse in the home. Both my mom and sister went to therapy. My sister wanted to go back to her parents before school started. Now, presently, my sister has learned that she can abuse our mom and get away with it. I have gotten 3 phone calls where I've seen my mom with black eyes, scratches, or marks from my sister. I've witnessed her snatch a wig off my mother's head and rip her hair out. My mother lacks confidence because her husband insults her on the daily, and my sister will destroy anything that could bring her confidence. I've witnessed her pour Starbucks into my mom's makeup bag, cut her wig, etc. She's thrown glass mugs at my mother too. The last phone call I got from my mother was her with another black eye, and she said that my stepdad tried to spank my sister, but she just rolled her eyes. Apparently, he took her phone away too, but only for 2 hours. My stepdad does not stand up for my mother, and she has no power and no money to enforce over my sister's head. My sister says they can't do anything either, or she'll call CPS on them. When my mother called me this last time, I basically just shrugged and told her I didn't know what else to tell her. Send her to boot camp, a mission trip, turn off her phone, something, but it's all things I've said before. I've toyed with the idea of getting the law involved, but how seriously do they take child-to-parent abuse? What if I did that? Any advice is appreciated, and thanks for reading my vent post. Edit. Going no contact is almost impossible. I owe my entire life to my grandparents, and if I go no contact with my mom/dad, the burden falls onto my grandmother, who my mom would hound to get to me. I am taking steps to go low contact, though. Edit 2. Just found out my sister's aunt, my stepdad's sister, was told about the abuse from my mom. My aunt would like to hold a family meeting/intervention with the whole family, me and the parents included. I will not be part of the disciplining process, but I absolutely will be giving my 2 cents on everything. Come to find out, it's my aunt paying for my sister's very expensive school, and she's now threatening to pull her from that school if she does not agree to a 6-week anger management outpatient thing. My sister is incredibly snobby and has said before she'd rather die than go to public school. She also loves her cheerleading team. I will keep updating. Comments where OP has replied. Comment, NTB, but get your mom to put up hidden nanny cams in her house so the next time your half-sister hurts her, it's on camera. And when half-sister pulls the CPS card again, your mom will have footage in case she does call them. She can also take the footage to the police and press charges. Maybe juvenile detention or jail will teach the spoiled brat she can't just get away with everything. Opie. I've been telling my mom to record her, at least what she says, in voice memos, but my sister gets my mom in such a tizzy she forgets to do it in the moment. I have a couple of recordings, but just of her being insanely bratty and mouthy, nothing legally incriminating, sadly. A secret cam might do the trick if I can convince my mom to put it up. Comment, it sounds like your mother is desperate for your help. Maybe even a way out, even if that only means a roof and 4 walls. Opie. I have tried to help as much as I can between my means. She doesn't want the advice or solutions I give her. She doesn't want to bring up the problem to anybody or do anything drastic, which I realize is also a pattern of abuse. But there isn't anything else I can do. I called CPS before and they found no abuse. If I called the cops, they'd all pretend like everything was fine. Comment, this is really just a sad situation. The only way I can really see to fix this is to have your mother and stepdad divorce, to just sever the tie of your awful stepsister, or send her to a camp. But it's very unlikely. The way you're feeling is very real. Your burnout of trying to put out fire on someone else's house. Unfortunate but not your problem. Your mother's getting beaten by a child, and your stepdad wants a brat to like him before he dies. If you can't step away from the situation, At least protect yourself emotionally and understand that there really is nothing you specifically can do to fix other people's lives. Through therapy, I've begun the process of peeling away emotionally. I will always have sympathy and compassion for my family, for anyone, but I've realized there's nothing more I can do. I've come to terms with the fact I might have to always keep this part of my family at arm's length to truly be able to breathe. These are the final steps to keeping it that way until they change something. The sad part is my mom has made changes by leaps and bounds. She's quit alcohol, quit abusing her pills, gone to psychotherapy, and gotten her bipolar under control and stuck to it, etc. She is so much more controlled. But my sister and stepfather bring out the worst in her still, for their benefit. Comment: if you're in the States, many states have elder abuse laws. It sounds like stepdad qualifies. Not sure about mom. In FL, it's a felony. If I got them involved, my stepdad and mom would play dumb and deny everything. They're too embarrassed to bring shame upon themselves from what they've raised. Sadly. Now on to the next story. Story 2. I kicked out my husband and his manipulative female best friend after he moved her into our house and tried to share a room with her. So I, 28F, have been married to my husband, 30M, for 4 years. We got married after 3 years of dating. He and I have had a normal relationship apart from this one factor, his relationship with his best friend. His best friend, as he calls her, was his neighbor growing up, and they did everything together. I'll refer to her as Fiona. Fiona and my husband went to the same daycare, kindergarten, middle school, and high school, too. They also went to the same college but were in different departments. They have been inseparable since they were kids. Something I cannot forget because they keep bringing it up every chance they get. They only went their separate ways once they got jobs. Thankfully, that's how I met my husband. And Fiona tells me that I'm the third woman in my husband's life. The first being his mother, the second being her, and then me. She says it like it's a joke, but I'm not sure if she doesn't actually mean it. Full disclosure, I've always thought that she didn't like me and saw me as competition. When my husband and I first started dating, he had introduced her to me as his oldest friend, and I had tried to be nice to her, but she instantly started making fun of how much makeup I'd been wearing that day and told me that I didn't need to impress her. This continued, and she would often take pot shots at me about my makeup, my clothes, and stuff. If not that, then there were always backhanded compliments to make me feel insecure. She once told me to my face that my husband's type was dumb blondes. I am blonde. I guess by now you guys have an idea of the kind of woman I'm talking about. I tried to talk to my husband several times while we were dating to tell him that I didn't have a good feeling about Fiona, but he brushed it off and always told me that I would warm up to her eventually and that she was an acquired taste because she never minced her words and was a little too blunt for other women to handle. I guess the fact that my husband kept putting down everyone else to make her seem like a good person should have been enough of a warning for me, but honestly, at the time, it seemed like a small price to pay to be with him because he was a perfect guy otherwise. He was everything I ever wanted: smart, funny, charming. And I was ready to tolerate Fiona because I really wanted to be with him, and he always made sure that I knew he loved me. So everything was good. I started ignoring Fiona after some time and didn't let her get under my skin. And once she found a guy for herself, it got even better because she stopped picking on me for no reason. For years ago, Fiona met Eddie on a dating app, and within a year, they were engaged. To say that she was smitten with him would be an understatement, and he seemed pretty in love with her as well. In spite of their obvious affection for one another, I still believe that a year was not enough to really get to know someone, and they hadn't even been living together long enough to entertain the idea of marriage. But Fiona and I are not friends, and I knew that if I tried to say something to her, she would make a fuss out of it, so I kept my mouth shut. I did tell my husband about it, hoping that he would nudge her in the right direction, but he only kept talking about how great it was that both he and Fiona were engaged at the same time and would probably end up getting married around the same time as well. They had been talking about a joint wedding, but I shot that idea down before it got out of control by saying that Fiona and her ideas were very different from what I wanted. And thankfully, she didn't insist on it. She got married to Eddie around a month after us, and everything was beautiful until very recently. 5 months ago, Fiona confided in my husband and told him that she had been struggling to get pregnant. She and Eddie were about to get tested since they'd been trying for almost 6 months with no results. And unfortunately, Fiona turned out to be infertile. Things started going sour in her marriage after that revelation, and even though they tried marriage counseling, it didn't work for her because Eddie decided to file for divorce anyway because he couldn't be with a woman who he couldn't have his own kids and family with, and he didn't want to waste any more of his life. It was really low and disgusting of him, and I actually felt pretty bad for Fiona. She started visiting us way more often than she used to, and I put up with it because I knew that she was going through a really difficult time, and my husband was obviously the only friend that she could count on. I honestly didn't even have the heart to feel annoyed by her frequent visits because every time she would come over, she would just be crying, and my husband would try to console her. It was quite impossible to feel annoyed by someone who was already suffering so much because I knew that she really loved Eddie. Then, the process of coming to a settlement started, and she had to see him when they met for their sessions, which proved to be even more difficult for her, and she started spiraling even deeper. So my husband asked me if she could live with us for a while until she started feeling better because she claimed that apparently being around us made her feel sane again. That was almost 2 weeks ago, and as soon as I let her into my house, I started to regret it. Not only was she critical of every single thing that I did, but she got away with it as well because of how depressed she was. She didn't like the cooking, she didn't like the way our house had been decorated, and she didn't like the shows that I watched, so we had to do everything her way because my husband believed that she needed it right now. I told him several times that I wanted her out and that she could move back in with her parents if she was going to be ungrateful. But he begged me to let her stay because he was afraid that she might end up doing something stupid to herself if we kicked her out at such a delicate stage. So I didn't say anything to her because I wouldn't want something like that on my conscience. However, I had to kick both of them out of my house the day before yesterday because they took things way too far. When I came back home from work, I realized that my husband had moved a lot of his stuff from our bedroom to the guest bedroom where Fiona had been living. He had actually come back home early to do all that, and when I returned, he and Fiona were still moving his things to the guest bedroom. I was really confused, and I asked to speak with him privately, but he told me that I could speak with him freely in front of her because she wouldn't mind. Truth be told, for the first time in several weeks, Fiona actually looked like she was happy. So I asked him why he was moving his things into the guest bedroom, and he told me quite casually that he was going to be living with Fiona in the same room now. I was stunned for a few seconds, and when I asked him why that was, he told me that Fiona had been having panic attacks for several days in a row, and she needed someone to be there to comfort her when she woke up in the middle of the night and was losing her mind over her divorce. I instantly told him that he couldn't do that, and it was crazy that he even expected me to be okay with it, but he used the same excuse that he had been using for years when it came to Fiona and said that she was like a sister to him and I had nothing to worry about. Both of them were smiling at me as if smiling about this was going to make this better and make it seem like a normal thing to want to do. I was so angry and frustrated that I wanted to smack them both, but instead, my anger reached such a crazy level that I chose to deal with it a different way. I smiled right back at them and told them that I understood where they were coming from and it was all completely fine with me. My husband even had the audacity to say that he knew I would be okay with it, and they went back to setting up the room. In the meantime, I went back to our bedroom and brought out the deed to our house. This house had been a gift to me by my father from when I got my first job, so it only had my name on it, and legally the house belongs to me. When I found that document, I went back into the guest room and asked them really sweetly if they were done unpacking. When they said that they were, I told them that they could start packing again because they were about to end up on the streets, where they could play happy family all they wanted to. My husband looked really confused for a while until I brought out the deed and told him that this house was mine and I was no longer going to tolerate either of them living under my roof and disrespecting me. He tried to laugh it off because he thought that I was joking, but when I didn't laugh along, he told me that I was being ridiculous and that I couldn't just kick them out. So I told him that I could, and I was actively in the process of kicking them out so he couldn't argue with me. I told him that I was sick of him and I was even more sick of having Fiona around because she was nothing but a blubbering mess right now, and a really annoying one at that. She started crying yet again when I said that, and my husband started to defend her and accused me of always being jealous of her because I was insecure. I didn't even bother to deny it because it was true I was insecure, but that had nothing to do with me and everything to do with their weird relationship. I told them if they couldn't live without each other, then they should probably only stick to each other instead of getting with other people and ruining their lives like mine. It turned into a really nasty fight after that, but eventually, They did go away because my husband said that he felt insulted since he had been nothing but loyal to me, but even it wasn't good enough for me. Fiona didn't stop crying until she was out of the house and accused me of being evil and jealous even as she was leaving. I didn't respond to her because I just didn't have the energy to argue with him anymore. I just wanted them to go away. I had believed that my troubles would come to an end once they were gone, but apparently not, because as soon as I kicked them out, our common friends, who had never felt the need to talk about our relationship, started texting me to tell me that I was making a big deal out of nothing. They believed that my husband was just trying to be a good friend to Fiona because panic attacks are no joking matter, and instead of taking it seriously, I was making it all about myself and my own insecurities. I could tell that he had put them up to this because the content of all the messages was pretty much the same, more or less, so I tried to ignore it. But then he got all his family and relatives to talk to me as well, and they were all telling me that I was being horrible to both of them by kicking them out when Fiona was going through such a difficult phase of her life. They told me that I was heartless and that I didn't deserve a husband like him in the first place because they had always known that I was never going to be good enough for him. And deep down, even I knew that, which is why I was so insecure and felt threatened by Fiona. I didn't think that it was worth it to try and argue with them, so I just blocked everybody for my own peace of mind since nobody was going to understand what I was going through because they didn't even care. They only cared about my husband and Fiona and what they felt. I thought that blocking them was the solution, and I was going to file for divorce, but then my husband reached out to me through a different number and told me that he was still willing to come back to me as long as I apologized. In that message, he told me yet again that he had always considered Fiona as the sister that he never had and had never had any romantic feelings for her, so I was really misinterpreting the whole situation. He told me that he cared for her deeply and even loved her, but it was more of a platonic, sisterly love, and not the romantic kind that I believed he had for her, since that was just reserved for me. He told me that the thought of going through life without me was devastating for him. He said that he had made a mistake by leaving that day, but he also believed that I had reacted really harshly and misjudged the situation. He wanted me to think about things with a cooler head and consider the consequences of whatever I was planning to do calmly, since he didn't want me to make a mistake and then regret it for the rest of my life. He is ready to come back to me and mend our relationship as long as we can both apologize to each other for the misunderstandings. I really don't know how to react to that because, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think I was harsh. But I don't know if it's the right call for me anymore to get divorced from him, since he insists that Fiona is like a sister to him. In all honesty, that message really threw me off, and now I'm wondering if I should even go through with any of this. ITA for kicking my husband out when he said that he wanted to share a room with his female best friend to comfort her during her panic attacks? Update 1. Hey, so I guess I was really incredibly blind. The kind of criticism that I received in the comments of my original post was actually eye-opening because it made me realize that I had fallen asleep at the wheel and now my marriage was over. I should have nipped his friendship with Fiona in the bud, and that might have ended with us breaking up, but it would have been totally worth it because then, at least, I wouldn't have to get divorced now because of Fiona. I really don't understand how I allowed my husband to get away with so much. I guess I just really loved him, and maybe still do, and that's why I was considering forgiving him and getting back together. In my defense, he is a smooth talker and always tried to gaslight me into thinking that his friendship with Fiona was completely normal, and my being insecure about it was just not acceptable. It had taken a lot of manipulation over the years to convince me of it, but he eventually managed to really push me to the limit when he tried to stay the night with her. That was just the final nail in the coffin. My parents are sympathetic and think I'm doing the right thing by going ahead with the divorce since there really isn't any way that my husband and I can bounce back from something like this. He can't take back the things that he said, and I don't think he is going to break his friendship with Fiona just to be with me. It has been a couple of days, and I still haven't texted him back. I don't even know where the two of them are right now, and I feel like I don't want to find out because I won't like the answer either way. This is happening because I need to move on from him and live my best life. I deserve somebody who always puts me first, and clearly that was never going to be him. I was a complete fool for holding on to the hope that he might someday put me above Fiona. But now I know that's not going to happen, and it's best for me to just leave while I can. I have filed for divorce, and he is going to be served in a couple of days, hopefully. Once again, thank you so much for commenting and making me realize how stupid I was being. I really needed to hear it. Update 2. My husband was served a week back, and he has decided not to contest the divorce. One would think that if he's not contesting the divorce, then he wouldn't want to talk to me either. But he paid me a visit last evening to tell me that he was disappointed that I was giving up on our marriage over something so petty. I wasn't expecting him to show up at our house, especially after I had humiliated him and kicked them out, but he also had to collect a few things, so I had to let him in. After he was done packing, he sat down opposite me on the couch and told me that he wanted to speak to me. I didn't say anything throughout because I wanted to know what he had to say for himself. So he told me that he wasn't going to contest the divorce if that's what I wanted. But he wanted me to know that he believed that I was making a mistake. He said that he had always only ever loved me and found it insulting that I could even think that he would ever cheat on me, and with Fiona, of all people. He went on to say that they had been living with his parents, and everyone was quite upset about my choice to leave over something like this. After he was served, his mother actually wanted to speak to me in person, apparently, but he had stopped her because he respected my choice and didn't want to back me into a corner by getting people to bother me. I thought that this was a bit rich coming from a guy who had told all his friends and family to text me and tell me to take him back and that I was a horrible human being, a heartless person, and whatnot after I had first kicked him out. So I brought that up because I couldn't resist the need to remind him of what he had done, and he started looking really uncomfortable. He tried to deny the fact that he was behind it and told me that everyone who had texted me had done so because they wanted to, and he had nothing to do with it. But I wasn't an idiot, and so I brought out the texts that our common friends had sent to me, and all of them were along the same lines, so I knew that someone had been feeding them what to say, and they had just been regurgitating that while sending me those texts. The only person who stood to benefit from this was my husband, so denying it wasn't going to make it any less true. The fact of the matter was that he had tried to back me into a corner already, and it hadn't worked, which is why he was not doing it again. It wasn't out of the kindness of his heart, as he was claiming it to be. So then he tried to steer the conversation away from that and started talking to me about how difficult the past couple of days had been for him, knowing that our marriage was coming to an end. He started crying on the couch and said that life was just not going to be the same without me, and that he constantly found himself wishing that there was something he could do to make things right with me. It was already pretentious enough that he was even trying to talk to me about these things, knowing fully well that nothing was going to change. But the crying was just a little too much. I didn't have any sympathy for him, and so I said the only thing that came into my head when he mentioned that he wished there was something he could do to fix this situation. So I told him that I might reconsider the divorce if he could promise me that he would never see Fiona again. And that really caught him by surprise. He stopped crying almost immediately, and both of us waited silently for the other to say something. Just to be clear, I didn't have any intention of staying with him regardless of what his answer to that question was. Even if he had told me that he'd stop being friends with Fiona, I still wouldn't have stayed with him. But of course, he didn't say that. Instead, he started arguing with me, saying that I was being unfair. He started bringing up everything that I had already heard before in every argument that we have had with regard to Fiona and his friendship, that she was his oldest friend in the world, that she was like a sister to him, he couldn't just abandon her for my sake, and she was already going through so much. It would be cruel of him to leave her side at this time. But I guess it was just fine for him to leave my side even though I was literally his wife, and he had made a commitment to me. I got bored of him listing reasons as to why he should still be friends with Fiona and stopped him before he could list more. I told him that this was exactly the reason why I was leaving, because even when he was given a chance to choose between staying married to me or being friends with Fiona, he chose his friendship over his marriage. So now he couldn't even complain that I hadn't given him a chance or that I was overreacting. I had been right about everything, and my husband didn't have an answer to that, so he left quietly. And now we just have to wait for the legal proceedings to begin. Update 3. It's been a few weeks since the last update, and today we met in court for the first time. We have to wait for at least 6 months before we can finalize the divorce because that's the waiting period in our state. Afterward, my husband came up to me to tell me that he would wait out these 6 months if that's what was necessary to make me come back. I couldn't believe that he was still trying to win me over because it had been weeks since I last saw or even spoke to him. I didn't think that we had anything left to talk about now that the divorce was happening, but he still did speak to me and tried to get back on good terms with me, I suppose. I just asked him if he was still living with Fiona, and he didn't have an answer to that, so we just stood there quietly. I rolled my eyes at him and was about to get into the car when he told me that Fiona couldn't go back to living with her parents because her mother was insufferable and blamed Fiona for the divorce because she was the infertile one. That is why she had chosen to live with us, and then with his parents. I know that I was supposed to feel sorry for her, but it was really hard to feel bad for somebody who had always made me feel bad about myself and was the reason behind my divorce. I told my husband from inside the car that she had a lot of other friends, too. Unmarried ones, who would have gladly taken her in. It was just that my husband was unwilling to admit that there was something strange about their friendship. It had cost him our marriage, but he was still not ready to accept the truth and admit that it wasn't really necessary for him to move Fiona in with us. We had an argument about it right before I came back home, and it just made me realize once again how stupid I had been all along. I can't believe that I had even been reconsidering the divorce in the first place. My relationship with him has cost me a lot. Our friends, my sanity, and a ton of money as well because Fiona had been living here for free, and now I'm also going to have to pay for the lawyer. It's just crazy to me that I had been willing to look past so much just because I loved my husband, but he didn't love me enough. Not even to admit that moving Fiona in with us was a bad move. It's ridiculous how stubborn he is when it comes to her, and I think it's a good thing that we are getting divorced because now he can finally be with the woman he actually loves and stop wasting my time. I just wish that he realizes it soon and stops chasing after me. Update 4. So something crazy just happened, and I can't believe that my husband would ever say such horrible things about Fiona. We had met each other just a few days ago, and I hadn't been expecting to hear from him so soon, but he came by yesterday to finally admit that he was wrong and that I had been right about every single thing. He had finally apologized to me and was owning up to his mistakes, which I never thought would happen. It was a huge shock for me, and part of me still can't believe that he finally realized how wrong he was and that Fiona had always had it in for me. I had been minding my own business when I came back home from work, and that's when he showed up and started ringing the doorbell frantically. When I opened the door, he just stormed in without even waiting for me to say anything, and I could tell that he was riled up about something. I thought he was here to argue with me at first and was about to call the cops to have him forcibly removed from my property, but to my surprise, he actually started crying once again. But this time, it was a lot more real rather than for effect like it was the last time. I dropped everything that I had been doing to try and console him because I was still just human at the end of the day, and I can't be the person who watches somebody cry and says nothing about it. Even if it had been Fiona in his place, I would have done the same thing. After a while, he calmed down enough and told me that he had taken a day off from work and was spending it at home because he was depressed about the divorce. And then Fiona had come into his room to comfort him, but instead, she started trying to flirt with him and stuff, something she had never done before. He tried to tell her to back off and that he wasn't in the mood for jokes, but then she tried to cuddle with him and that's where he drew the line. He realized that I had been right about her, and even though he had never thought of her as anything more than a friend, or maybe a sister, she had always been trying to get with him. So they ended up getting into a huge fight, and Fiona accused him of leading her on for years only to get married to me and called him a cheater before she packed her things and moved back in with her parents. And now, he was here to apologize to me and tell me that I'd been right about everything. He told me that he was sorry that he had taken me for granted and said that he didn't deserve somebody like me anyway, and this divorce would probably help him get his head back on straight. We talked a little after that and cleared the air. I realized that he wasn't lying when he said that he only loved me, and he did think of Fiona as a sister. It wasn't enough to make me stay, but at least it made me feel a lot less terrible about my life decisions. We are still getting divorced, but we are going to try and end things on good terms, and I hope that it works out well for us. Now on to the next story. Story 3. Finally went nuclear on my entitled slob, Bill, and his lazy wife after they crashed at my home uninvited, left our place a wreck, ignored my wishes, and tried turning my own wife against me. I've been married to Rita for about a year, and it has been great for the most part. I am 31M, and she is 30F. We had been together for 3 years before we got married. We met because of a couple of common friends who thought it would be a great idea to set us up on a blind date as a joke since we are so different, and eventually it actually turned out pretty great, considering the fact that we got married. But anyway, Rita has an older brother, David. David is 35M, and his wife, Erica, is around the same age. My wife is very close to her brother because while growing up, they pretty much only had each other. Their mother passed away shortly after Rita was born, and it was a devastating incident for the family because she passed away in a road accident, so nobody saw it coming. Rita was just 7 months old at the time, and her mother had been out getting the groceries since her father was at work. It was just the kids and the babysitter who had been at home at the time. Her father pretty much fell into an irreversible depression after their mother passed away. My wife was obviously too young to remember it, but David remembers the way their father used to act in the aftermath of their mother's demise and how he would spend all his days locked up in his room either working or sleeping. He had started working from home after that, and even though everything was provided to them, they essentially did not have parents. Even though their father was still alive, there was no love or affection that was shown to them. It was just very sad. So anyway, they realized that pretty early on, and they would have to be there for each other because their mother was gone, and their father was just barely surviving without her. So they had to look out for each other and have each other's backs. I think it's very admirable that they have such a great relationship and are so close, but at the same time, it can get really annoying for me because I personally don't come from a family where this is normal. For context, I do not have any siblings, and my parents got divorced when I was 12 years old. I would not say that it affected me in any way, I just realized that I had 2 rooms now, and that was it. My parents getting divorced was not surprising because even when they were together, they would just keep fighting all the time and barely even speak to each other. I honestly don't even know how they managed to live with each other for 12 years. But anyway, after they got divorced, they were much easier to live with and a lot more pleasant to talk to, so I actually preferred them to be divorced. They continued to co-parent me and remained in touch. But speaking about the different kinds of families that we had, I am not the kind of guy who visits my parents every weekend or speaks with them on the phone every day. I'm very busy with work and my life, and we are lucky if we get to speak for maybe a day or 2 every month. I don't think my parents mind it either because they have their own lives and are okay with us just getting together once in a while as opposed to every other day. But it's not the same for my wife. I tried to respect it earlier, knowing that she has had a very different childhood and, obviously, she and her brother are bonded for life. However, it just kept getting more difficult for me to deal with it with time. Earlier, when we were dating, she would speak to him on the phone almost every day, and I thought it was cute. The phone calls would usually last for an hour, and I didn't have an issue with it because, like I said, I am not close to my family, she is, and that's her life and her choice. As long as it was not affecting me in a negative way, I did not have a problem with it. So I knew that she would be busy at night, and I would not call her around that time. But then we moved in together, and she would talk to her brother for almost 3 hours every day, and every weekend he would come to visit us. That kind of started annoying me a little because of a couple of reasons. Both Rita and I had full-time jobs and would be working throughout the day. So when I came back home from work, I expected to be able to spend some time with my girlfriend at the time. But I would have to wait for her to be done talking to her brother, and by the time she was done, I was too tired and would just fall asleep as soon as my head hit the pillow. That was the weekdays. But on the weekends, I thought that maybe we would be able to spend quality time together. However, on those days, her brother would land at our door, and we would spend the entire weekend together. It used to feel like we were not getting any time together, and I didn't feel good about it. I didn't even know how to bring it up with her without sounding petty and insecure, so I stayed silent about it for a couple of months. But then we had our first big fight about something that I don't even remember, and then I decided to bring this up with her. Thankfully, that fight was resolved, and we even spoke about the excessive time that she was spending with her brother. She told me that she would try to cut down on it and give me more time instead because, evidently, that was bothering me and getting in the way of our relationship, and she did not want that. She explained to me that her brother lived a couple of hours away on his own, which he was not used to, but he had to live alone since their father passed away a couple of years before that. He was also feeling very lonely because his girlfriend was working in another state and would only come back for the holidays, so he did not get to see her very often, which is why they were spending so much time together so he did not feel alone. She had not told me about it because he was not comfortable talking about it, but once I got that explanation, it started to make a little more sense to me. She also understood where I was coming from and told me that she would try to spend more time with me, and we would work on our relationship. So then, her brother started visiting less frequently, and they cut down on the hours of their calls. This had happened 1 year into our relationship, but then once we had the discussion and got it out of the way, everything was fine again. I proposed to her about a year after that. But things started getting awkward between me and David soon after she started spending less time with him. He would still visit us occasionally, but on those visits, everything would be very tense. I don't blame him for that because, obviously, I was the one who had asked his sister to spend less time with him, and he did not like that because now he had to spend more time alone. So whenever we would be together, he would take digs at me and try to imply that I was too insecure and jealous to let Rita be in touch with her family. Of course, he would pass it all off as jokes, but I knew that he was actually pretty pissed about what had happened. I thought it was weird that he was taking this so personally because it was really not about him. Even if Rita had been spending that kind of time with anybody else, I would have felt equally sidelined. I don't think it was wrong for me to want to spend time with my girlfriend, and it was not my fault that his girlfriend was working out of state so he could not be with her. But his sister was not a replacement for that, for God's sake. I felt like things had changed between the two of us, and now he saw me as more of a sort of competition because that's the way he started behaving. Even a month before I proposed, he organized a party and invited us all to it, which actually turned out to be his wedding. Erica had quit her job and come back home, and they had decided to surprise us. The key word here is surprise, so I had no idea that they were getting married. They had skipped the engagement and just got married, which made sense because they had been together for a really long time before that. I was happy for them, and we did not interact much at their wedding, even though it was very small and intimate, and he had only invited a couple of his friends, coworkers, and family members, so he had enough time to interact with me, but he just chose not to. I did not mind it because it was his wedding, and he could choose to do whatever he wanted to. And it was not like we were friends anyway, so I did not make an issue out of it. But then, a month later, when I got engaged and threw an engagement party a couple of days after that, he spent the entire party making jokes about how we were getting serious about the competition now because I had even gotten engaged just because he was married and I did not want to fall behind. Even his jokes, they were quite distasteful because this was supposed to be a happy occasion for me and Rita, and he was making it all about himself. I don't think anybody found it funny, and everybody who was laughing was doing it so that he would stop talking about it. Even Rita did not like it one bit, and we talked about it later but did not do anything about it because it did not seem worth it to make a big deal out of this, and we decided to focus on planning the wedding instead. We got married about 7 months later, and that's when he announced that he and Erica were going to be parents. He made the announcement about a week after our wedding, and Rita was ecstatic, but I was just worried about how the dynamics would change between us after that, because I was pretty certain that he would use this opportunity to start taking potshots at me. I know it probably sounds like I'm making too much out of it, but trust me, David's behavior around me was nothing short of disrespectful and unnecessarily passive-aggressive. And I was actually right because as soon as they got pregnant, he started making jokes about how I would announce that we were pregnant the next thing that they knew because obviously, I could not live with the fact that I was falling behind and I had to win whatever competition I had initiated. He said it all in a very joking way, so I had to laugh along with him every time he would visit and say these stupid things, but on the inside, I would actually be pretty pissed off. Anyway, after they had their twin babies, they got pretty busy with their kids and did not visit us as often as they would, and we did not mind that either because Rita understood that they were parents now, and I did not even want David around in the first place, so I was good. Everything was going normally, but about 2 weeks ago, I came back home from work and all of a sudden realized that David and Erica had taken over the house. It was kind of disorienting for me because I didn't remember having any discussion about this with Rita, and I had been caught completely off guard. When I came back home, David was playing in the living room with his twins, and Rita and Erica were cooking together in the kitchen. I also noticed that there were a lot of unpacked bags in the living room, and I asked Rita to speak to me in private so I could understand what this was all about. Once we were in our bedroom alone, I asked her what was going on, and she told me that she had invited them to live with us for a month or so because, apparently, Erica had to quit her job when she got pregnant and was not actually on maternity leave like she had been telling everyone. When she got pregnant, she had only been working at her new company for a couple of months, and they don't really offer paid leave for new mothers who have not even been working there for a year. So she had been told that she could either go on maternity leave without pay or she would have to come into work. She had decided to quit because it was too stressful for her to even think about it, and David was earning well enough so it did not seem to be a problem for either of them at the time. But now, she spent the entire day at home, and she was not used to not contributing to the household expenses because she had been working ever since she turned 18, and that's why she was having a tough time not going to work and just being at home with her children. So she had been acting out, and David thought that maybe this was postpartum depression or something, so he had been very concerned about it and had spoken to her doctor. He had come to the conclusion that it would be better for her to be able to spend some time with other people as well instead of being left alone with the kids all day, so they decided that we would be living together under one roof until she was ready to go back to work or until she felt better. I don't know how I felt about that decision because I hadn't even been included in the discussion, and Rita had just made the decision without even consulting me first. Even though both of us lived in the house together, and this was something that should have been a joint discussion instead of just her deciding something and then informing me after she had already said yes to it, especially when she was well aware of the equation between me and David. So we got into a bit of a fight that day because I told her that I was not comfortable with the idea of living with them for more than a week, and she had already agreed that we would all be living together for at least a month, but I had not even been included in that discussion. So I did not understand why she had thought that I would be okay with it, especially given the circumstances with me and David. I was very against it, and she thought that I was being selfish and that I should think about her family and their well-being instead of being petty. Eventually, I had to agree because she had started emotionally manipulating me and said that she did not want to have a guilty conscience in case Erica actually did have postpartum depression, and so she was willing to help them out. It was just a month and it would be over in no time, at least that's what she told me. I was really too tired to fight with her anymore, so I just let it go because, at the end of the day, I knew that she really valued her family, and this was just something that I had to accept, even if I did not like her family, her brother, to be more specific. They were all kind of loud and obnoxious to live with, especially David with his constant jibes at me, and I really hated having to wake up in the middle of the night because one of their twins was crying. But it did not even bother Rita because she was not a light sleeper like me, and as a matter of fact, neither was anybody else. It felt really unfair because I was having to make so many sacrifices for kids that were not even mine. I have nothing against the children, but I did not like the fact that the adults in this situation did not seem to care about anybody apart from themselves. And the worst part was that David and his wife were both huge slobs, which was not something that I could accept because I'm a bit of a neat freak and I really don't like it when people don't even want to do the bare minimum. They would keep their dishes lying here and there around the house, they would never clean up after themselves, and they could not even be bothered to do their share of chores around the house. So everything was a huge mess, and I hated living that way. I even tried to politely tell them that they had to clean up after themselves, and everybody just made fun of me because they thought that I was being ridiculous and would ask me to lighten up, which was even more infuriating than what they were doing. I finally lost my temper at them a couple of days ago, and since then, Rita has been refusing to speak to me because she thinks that I was very rude and I should not have behaved that way with her family. David and Erica know that we are fighting, and they are obviously on her side, but while they are not ignoring me, they are definitely all giving me the cold shoulder. And I don't even know what I did wrong. About 3 days ago, I came back home from work, and everything was a huge mess. I could not even walk in without stepping on something because there were toys and clothes literally all over the floor. There were random food stains on the walls and the couch, and Erica was napping on the couch with her children, even though they had the guest room to themselves. David was sitting on the couch with a glass of wine and watching the football game that was on that day, and he did not even seem put off by the fact that the entire room smelled really bad. He usually gets home earlier than me because he has been cutting down on his hours ever since the kids were born. And I don't know what happened that day, but I just snapped. I started screaming at everybody. I woke Erica up and told her and David that I would watch the kids, but they had to clean the house up immediately because this was my house, and it was my name on the deed. So they were welcome to do whatever they wanted when it was their own home that they were living in, but here they were house guests, and they had to do what I asked of them. I had tried telling them to keep the house clean plenty of times, and I had been very polite about it earlier, but evidently that did not have the desired effect. So now I was demanding that they do what I told them to and clean up the house. They did not even argue with me because I was that pissed off, and I was yelling my head off at them. When the twins started crying because of all the yelling, I took them into the guest room and told them to get to work while I watched the kids. I was literally fuming, and I only came back out 2 hours later when the house was spotless. I did not think it was necessary to thank David and Erica because I had been asking them to do this for ages, and they had only done it because I had started yelling at them. So after I made sure that the house was clean, I went into my room and stayed there until Rita came back home. She had been working overtime that day, and I had known about it, so she came back home pretty late, around 10 at night. As soon as she came back home, she came to our room and started fighting with me over what had happened earlier. She told me that what I had said to David and Erica and the way that I had behaved that day was absolutely unacceptable, and she wanted me to apologize to them because she thought that I had been rude to them on purpose. She believed that I had never liked David, and I was just trying to put him down and make him feel bad about himself along with his wife, which is just such rubbish. I had no intention of doing any of that, and I literally only just wanted the house to be clean. That's it. I even tried to explain that to her, but she was not ready to listen to me and told me that I had to apologize because the way that I behaved that day was not okay, and she did not appreciate the fact that I thought that I could speak like this to her family. She even went to the extent of saying that I would not like it if she acted like that with my family, but I think that's completely different because, first of all, I would never invite my parents to live with us without making sure that she was okay with it first. And more importantly, even if my parents were living with us, I am sure that they would not make a mess of the house like her brother and his family had. If speaking to them rudely was insulting to them, then living in my house and disregarding my opinions about cleanliness and hygiene was also disrespectful to me. Now, it has been a couple of days and my wife is not talking to me, and everybody else is giving me the cold shoulder. My wife and I sleep in the same room with our backs to each other. That's how bad it is right now. I feel very bad about this, and it honestly feels like they are targeting me on purpose. It will sound kind of immature, but that's a little how it feels, like everybody is on one side, and I am being pushed to the other side because they just want to make me feel like a bad guy for wanting something as basic as the house to be clean. Nobody is on my side on this, and literally, the only people who are treating me like they usually do are the kids, which is just so sad. I want to fix things with my wife, but I don't want to apologize because I don't think I did anything wrong. So I had yelled at my brother-in-law and his wife because they had been living with us and had made a mess out of my house. Date 1. So I went through the comments that you guys had left for me on the original post, and most people agreed that I don't have any reason to apologize right now, and I agree. It has been a week since our fight, and she has still not spoken to me. This is probably the longest that we have gone without talking to each other, and if this goes on for any longer, then I think I might move out and file for divorce because I don't see any other way out of this. She is not going to apologize and acknowledge that she messed up, and I don't have to do any of that because I did not do anything wrong. So we are in a deadlock, and I don't know what to do about it. It is really sad because I love her. I really do, and I want to make this work, but not at the cost of my dignity. So either we talk this out or I leave and this marriage comes to an end. It's going to be really sad if that happens, but I honestly don't know what else to do. Update 2. Okay, so yesterday I was talking about divorce, and today I don't think that's going to be necessary, thank God for that. So when I came back home from work today, I realized that the house was empty, and Rita finally spoke to me. She had come back home before I had, and she finally told me that she was sorry about the way that she had been behaving. She said that she had become so protective of her family that she forgot that even I was her family now, and she couldn't believe how stupid she had been. She told me that she had regretted fighting with me the very next day and had been trying to distance herself from David so she could think about things from my perspective, and she had realized how wrong she had been. She had even tried to talk to David and Erica to get them to apologize to me, but instead, they started trying to turn her against me and talked badly about me. The last straw was when David suggested that she leave me. She had been trying to talk them into apologizing to me for the last couple of days, and this morning, she had tried to talk to them yet again and had asked them to apologize to me. But that's when David brought up the fact that I have not been talking to her since we had that fight, and he told her that I was disrespectful towards her and her family and she should stand up for herself and leave me. So she tried to explain to him that even they were being pretty disrespectful by not bothering to listen to me when I told them that I wanted my house to be clean, and so he started throwing a fit and said that she was being unfair to them since they were new parents and did not have the time and energy to constantly look after the house. And when she tried to defend me and said that she was doing most of the household work and Erica did not have to do anything. Even David came back home from work early. The least they could do was keep the house clean. So they ended up fighting, and she realized just how toxic and entitled they were. So she told them to leave and they left. But they told her that they were disappointed that she had decided to be just like me. She had realized that they were not the right people and definitely did not want the best for her because if they had, they would have realized that she was happy with me and did not want to leave me. I was overjoyed that they were gone, and Rita and I were finally back. But obviously, we had a lot to work on and sort out. So we have decided that we are going to go see a marriage counselor this weekend and try to be normal again. I love her, and I really would have hated to live without her, so this is ideal. Everybody makes mistakes, and I am just glad that she realized that she had made some bad choices by alienating me. But at least now she acknowledged it and apologized for it. So we can work on everything and fix it. Update 3. Hey, so this is just after our first counseling session, and it went pretty well. We had a lot of issues, and I think that was pretty obvious from my post, but we have decided that from now on, any time that we have a conflict, we are going to talk about it and make sure that we end it then and there instead of just letting it build up and then blow it out of proportion. It was difficult to talk about things in front of a stranger, but we got used to it after a while, and once we got into the flow of it, it was actually pretty relieving. I feel like I got something really big off my chest, and I can actually tell that she feels the same way. I am really looking forward to where this leads us. We have had problems in the past, but I'm looking forward to sorting them out. She also thinks that she should get therapy for herself because the things that have happened with her brother have really shaken her up. They don't talk anymore because he stopped responding to her after the fight. I can't believe that somebody can be so ungrateful, but I guess that's how David is. I never liked him much, but now I think I like him even less, which I didn't even think was possible, but it's fine. I know that we can get through anything as long as we are together, and she will move on from this. I will make sure of it. Now on to the next story. Story 4. Drove my BF's new car to visit my parents and lied that it was mine. They secretly sold it to fund my divorced sister's vacation. Now my BF is suing, and I'm cutting ties with my entire family. So the question suggests that my parents decided to sell what they thought was my car to fund my sister's self-care vacation, and buy her a couple of expensive gifts because she just got divorced. I, 26F, drove to my parents' house in my boyfriend's new SUV because it's a pretty sweet ride, and I really wanted to go on a long drive in it. My boyfriend, Tyler, 28M, had been saving up for a really long time to buy a new car, and he has had this one for almost 2 months now. He and I have been together for 2 years, and last month he moved in with me. My parents live quite far away from me. It's usually a 6-hour drive from my place to theirs, and we meet maybe just once or twice a month. Last weekend, they had invited me over to stay for a couple of days with them since my dad was not doing well because his heart was acting up again. I decided to take the new car after talking to Tyler about it because my old car was in the shop for repairs. I didn't tell my parents about it being Tyler's car because I didn't think it was relevant. When they asked me who it was since they seemed pretty impressed by it, I just told them it was mine. I didn't know what it would lead to. I couldn't have possibly thought that they would sell it. Anyway, on the 4th day of my visit, I had gone to meet a friend, and when I came back, the car was gone. I started panicking immediately because I thought it was stolen, but when I went inside to speak to my parents about it, they told me that they had sold the car. I was shocked, and they explained that when I had shown up with a car, they decided to take a couple of photos of it and sent it to a bunch of their friends to ask if anybody would be willing to buy it. One of them had found an interested buyer who was willing to pay quite a sum for the car. I honestly don't know what kind of idiot would buy a car without bothering to have the title of the car signed over to them, but I guess they were able to find somebody who was foolish enough or maybe desperate enough to do that. When I asked them what they had done with the money, they told me that they had transferred the funds to my sister so she could take a well-deserved break because her divorce had just been finalized a couple of weeks back, and she needed to indulge herself in some self-care. They had even ordered a pair of diamond earrings and a bracelet for her online. They asked me not to be mad, but clearly, since I had bought the car, I was doing really well, and my sister had blown a lot of money on the divorce, so she really needed this. They could have paid for it with their own money, but they had to save for retirement as well, so they really expected me to be understanding of this and why they had done it. I was so furious that I didn't even know what to say to them, and I just started screaming in their faces, telling them that they had screwed up big time because the car wasn't even mine. It belonged to Tyler, and they would hear it from him once he found out about this. My parents had met Tyler a couple of times, but they were definitely not close, so even they received a shock when they found out that the car belonged to him and not me. But instead of being apologetic, they started freaking out and blaming me for not telling them the truth about who the car belonged to. They said that because of my decision to fake it, they had endangered themselves and quite possibly the person who had offered to buy that car. Apparently, they had planned on selling the car without my knowledge, and once I found out about it, they would just convince me not to press charges against them, and that would be it. But now, since they found out that the car didn't even belong to me in the first place, they were scared of what was going to happen and started bugging me to talk to Tyler and convince him not to press charges. They claimed that they had been fully convinced that I would not do anything to hurt them, and that's why they had sold the car when they thought it was mine, which is just insane. I don't even know how to make sense of that. Essentially, they were planning on taking advantage of the fact that I was family and were going to emotionally manipulate me into letting this slide. But with Tyler, they were not so confident and wanted me to do something to fix the situation. I told them that they could just contact the person who had bought the car and have him return it as it is, but they said that they had already sold it and transferred the funds to my sister, so that was not going to be possible. The only reason I was even negotiating with them was not that I wanted to protect them, but because I wanted the car back because I knew how hard Tyler had worked for it. The fact that my parents were still trying to defend the decision of selling the car for my sister's sake was pissing me off, so I told them that if they didn't do what I asked them to, then I would talk to Tyler and make sure that he pressed charges against them. And then we were at a stalemate because they thought that I was being too cruel and that my sister had really been through a lot, so she deserved this vacation and the gifts that they had ordered for her. They couldn't just take it all back from her after they had already told her about it. They claimed that she had been really happy when they had transferred the money to her and told her to take a vacation with that money, and had even mentioned the gift that she would be receiving once she came back home. They couldn't take that happiness away by telling her that they had canceled the gifts and she would need to return the money as well. So I told them that I couldn't care less about her happiness. I just needed the money back with the car, and if they didn't do it, I would speak to Tyler. They said that they knew I wouldn't do anything to hurt them, so I got my phone right in front of them, called Tyler, and explained the situation to them while they just looked horrified. I told Tyler that I wanted him to press charges against my parents. I was very pissed off, and I could hear that even Tyler was very upset, so he told me that he was going to speak to his lawyer and do something about this. After the phone call, my parents started screaming at me once again and pushed me out of their house, saying that I was a horrible human being and that I did not deserve to be called their daughter anymore. I was fine with that, but then they started saying that none of this would have even happened if I had just told them that the car did not belong to me, but instead I had chosen to lie about it, and now they were in trouble because of me. They said that I was just insecure that my boyfriend had a brand new shiny car and I couldn't afford to have the same, which is why I was trying to show off in front of them to impress them because they knew that I was just going to amount to a failure and nothing else. They had been right about it their entire life, and I couldn't stand that. I found that very offensive. When I tried to argue that I wouldn't even have brought the car with me if I had known what they had in mind, they said that they had only sold the car because they thought that I was family and that I would understand their predicament, but clearly, I was only interested in faking my lifestyle to impress other people. That was almost 3 days back, and since then, I have been living in a hotel, waiting for Tyler to show up here. We have been in touch, but I just can't help thinking that maybe this is my fault because I didn't tell my parents whom the car actually belongs to. Edit. Many of you wanted to know more about my relationship with my family. Well, as most of you might have figured out by now, there is a golden child in the family, and it's obviously not me. It's my older sister. She is 7 years older than me, and I don't have a good relationship with her. We have had no contact for the past couple of years, and it's not something that we decided on purpose. It's just something that happened organically. She lives out of state and rarely ever comes back home, and when she does, I don't visit my parents then because we don't get along. My childhood was not that bad, to be honest. Even though my parents were kind of biased towards my sister, I never felt like I was being sidelined or anything. This car incident just came out of nowhere. I had no idea that they were capable of doing something so crazy. Trust me, if they had treated me badly my entire life, I wouldn't even have stayed in touch with them earlier. It was only little things that used to bother me about my relationship with my parents, but they were very kind to me otherwise and were good parents all over, and that's why I stayed in touch with them. That's why I would visit them every month. This recent incident, though, just came out of nowhere. I think they're getting old and senile, and that's why they thought that this would be something acceptable, and I would just let it slide because I was family or whatever. They were wrong, though. And even the things that they had said towards the very end of our last meeting while they were pushing me out of the house, that they had always believed I was a failure and I wanted to prove them wrong. I don't know why that came from either because they have always been very supportive of me. They had never implied that I would grow up to be a failure. Maybe they believed it in their heart, but they never let it show and were very good actors because I had been totally convinced that they loved me. This whole incident was the first one that was completely out of the blue, and I don't know what would have possibly driven my parents to act this crazy. I mean, I know that my sister's divorce was pretty bad. Her husband had been cheating on her and had still managed to get away with it without paying her alimony and a dismal amount of settlement money. But still, that's not an excuse for my parents to act like this. Anyway, I hope that helps you guys make sense of why I had to stay in touch with my parents and come to a conclusion about what I should do. It's kind of urgent, so I would appreciate quick advice. Update 1. Hey, so yesterday after I posted my update, most people told me that I had absolutely no fault in this. I did not want my parents asking questions about why Tyler had done with his car and stuff, so I just decided to tell them one white lie. There was literally no way I could have known that it would lead to all of this, and I don't need to beat myself up about it. And yes, my parents might have treated me decently in the past, but after what they have just pulled, I don't owe them anything. Tyler showed up this morning, and he told me the same thing that people in the comments have been telling me, that I don't need to feel regret or guilt related to any of this. He is going to deal with this in his own way, and all I have to do is testify against my parents because he has had his lawyer draw up papers for a lawsuit and is pressing charges against my parents. And you know what? I'm going to be with him on this. They totally deserve whatever is coming to them, and they cannot dodge the consequences of this. In the evening, we plan on going to my parents' house and talking to them, giving them one last chance to fix their mistake, but I highly doubt that they are going to do it. Their only priority right now is making sure that my sister gets to indulge herself. I already tried reasoning with them earlier, but they were not receptive to it. If anything, I'm pretty sure that they're just going to feed me the same BS this time as well. But Tyler thinks that it's worth a try because he doesn't want to waste his time fighting this out in court when he can just settle it outside. Of course, if they don't do as we say, then we will have to take this to court. It has been a couple of days, so even they might have lied up by now, and I'm pretty sure that they're cooking up some lie against me to make them seem like the good guys here. But I know what happened, and all I really need is just the contact number of the guy who bought the car, and I will be able to sort this out in a jiffy. Anyway, since I don't have that right now, we are just going to have to suck it up and talk to them one last time so that we can tell them how bad it's going to end up for them if they don't get back the car at any cost. The one good thing that has happened so far is Tyler is here with me, so I feel much less stressed out about everything. He has been very kind and compassionate towards me because he knows that this is not my fault, and if anyone is to blame here, it's going to be my parents. Update 2. Okay, so a couple of things have happened. As I said, we went to my parents' house to speak to them and told them that we were giving them one last chance to fix the situation. But just as we had expected, they did not take us up on that offer. When we rang the doorbell and my dad opened the door to see us, he told me that he knew that he could count on me to realize that what we were doing by getting them into trouble was not right and that he was ready to forgive me. They were so delusional that they had literally assumed that I was there to apologize to them and not give them one last chance to fix the situation, and I found it kind of funny. So Tyler had to explain that we were there to talk to them about what was going on, and he said that he was here to tell them that he was pressing charges against them, so they had better get the car back or else things would not turn out well for them. My dad got offended and told Tyler that he had no right to speak to him that way when he was standing on his property and asked us to get out of there. But I stood my ground and told him that we were not going anywhere until he had given us the contact details of the person he had supposedly sold the car to because we just wanted the car back. We didn't want any trouble, neither for us nor for them. In fact, after this whole debacle was over, I planned on leaving them alone forever. And when I said that, my mom came around and said that she didn't care that I was threatening her. She knew that she had another daughter to count on, and she was going to make sure that everyone cut me off after that. Tyler and I realized that there was no talking to them about this. We would just have to go ahead with our threats and do what we had come here to do, so we left because it was pretty pointless. He then contacted his lawyer and said that he was ready to press charges because he had tried to sort this out before going the legal way, and now we were going to do what we had to do. So that was that, and then we returned to the hotel, and both of us were in a pretty nasty mood. Since my parents were wasting a lot of time and it was affecting us badly as well, we were just discussing demanding some settlement money from them as well, along with the car in perfect condition, for all the time that they had wasted. And also, in case the car had any damages, we were going to get that money from them as well. And while we were discussing it, I received a phone call from my older sister. I did not pick up because I couldn't possibly imagine what she would have to say to me. But then she called me a couple of more times, so I finally answered. And then she started lecturing me about how I was harassing my parents. And it was not right because they had raised me, so I needed to be grateful to them. I was pissed off, I had already mentioned that, and I really didn't want to speak to her, so I told her that maybe she believed that I owed them anything, but what they had done, I did not think along the same lines. And things had always been different for her, so it's not like she would even understand where I was coming from. I tried to hang up, but then she said that it was just typical of me to be ungrateful for everything that has been done for me, and I got very pissed off because, first of all, I don't even know what she was referring to, and secondly, I think what my parents had done was extremely unethical and stupid, so they definitely did not deserve to be excused by me like she believed they did. And then she made that comment. I asked her what she was referring to because I don't remember a single time I've been ungrateful to my parents. And she had the audacity to say that she was not talking about our parents, but she was talking about herself. That caught me off guard because I really couldn't recall any incident like that, and just as I had expected, she started ranting about something arbitrary that had taken place years ago. She told me that she had decided to go no contact with me. If you guys might remember, in my original post, I had mentioned that neither of us decided that we were going to go no contact. It just happened organically, so I don't know where that came from. Because of my ungrateful behavior, apparently she believed that back then, I got a really high-paying job because of her. My sister and I work in the same field, but even then, I was really shocked by that claim that she made on the phone because I could not remember anything like that happening, and I was very lost. And then she started explaining, and you know what? Just hold on, guys, her logic is going to blow your mind as well. Apparently, she believed that she was the one who was responsible for me getting that really great job back then because she had decided to move away with her husband and had withdrawn her application a couple of days after she had applied, after which I got selected eventually. In what universe does that make her responsible for getting me the job? I will never know. Anyway, she believed that she was owed a thank you after she decided to move away and left the job to me, and when I did not thank her for anything, she decided that she was never going to speak to me again until I acknowledged what she had done for me, which never ended up happening. So we didn't speak for the past couple of years. I was so confused because I didn't even know what she was playing at, trying to make it seem like I was ungrateful when I didn't even know about any of these expectations that she had from me. And even if I had known, I wouldn't have thanked her because they were completely unreasonable. I told her off instantly, and I said that she was in no way responsible for me getting the job. I am just as qualified as her, and I was just a bit younger at the time, but even then, I'm pretty sure that I got the job because of my own hard work and perseverance and not because she opted out. I told her that I didn't care if she thought that I was ungrateful. I just wanted her to leave me alone because I said that I was going to make sure that my parents returned the car to me in perfect condition. And if she thought that it was unfair on my part, tough, I was not going to change my mind. And she was a fool to think that she could call me, say such stupid things to me, and then try to make me feel differently about this situation. I also told her that obviously, she would never find any faults in our parents because she had always been treated like a princess, and I had been treated like I was just a normal kid. And even though I had never resented any of them for this, it was about time that I started acknowledging it. Then I hung up and blocked her, and now we are in no contact permanently. I'm making sure of that. After the phone call, I discussed things with Tyler, and we are not sure if our parents put her up to this, but if they did, they just made things worse for themselves. Anyway, it has been an incredibly long day, and it's almost 1 o'clock in the morning now. We have another long day ahead of us tomorrow as well, so I'm just going to try and get some rest. It was very important for me to vent out my feelings here because even though I did speak to Tyler about it, I just wanted to talk about it some more and get it completely out of my system, and that's why this was such a long update. So thanks for sticking by until the end. It means a lot to me for the ones who read it all the way through. See you guys soon. I'll keep you guys updated on what happens next, and hopefully, my parents won't put up much of a fight anymore after this because I'm really sick of everything, and I just want to go home to my normal life now. Update 3. Hi, so it's around noon right now, and as it appears, Tyler and I might not have to go to court at all because this morning my parents showed up at the hotel and started groveling, trying to get us to stop whatever it is that we were planning on doing. When we got a phone call from the front desk this morning, I was confused about whether I should let them up or not, but Tyler said that maybe we should talk to them because they might have changed their mind after last night, so we let them up. And when they were in our room, they started apologizing profusely, saying that they had thought things over after last night and they really didn't want any trouble, so they would really appreciate it if we could settle this out of court. They told me that they had contacted the man who had purchased the car from them and were talking to him, trying to convince him to come back. Apparently, he was ready to go on a cross-country road trip, but I personally think he might have been planning to run away because I can't think of anybody in their right mind who would have been willing to buy a car that they didn't even have the title to. And this was apparently coming at a really inconvenient time for him, but they were able to manage to convince him somehow, promising him that they would return $2,000 more than the amount that they had sold the car for. So we might be getting Tyler's car back after all, and we are really happy about it because we are relieved that we don't have to stay here for long. Since the guy who bought the car will be showing up at my parents' place in a couple of days to return the car, getting involved with the court here would mean staying here for several days, and we didn't want that, so this is a better option, to be honest. My parents also tried to apologize to me for their behavior and said that they had realized how wrong they had been, but I told them that that was completely unnecessary because no matter what they said at this point, I had made up my mind, and I was going to cut them off as soon as I went back home. They seemed a bit unhappy about that and said that they really wanted to make it up to me, but I told them that my decision was final, and I really didn't want to speak to them because this had been a terrible experience for me, and they had completely humiliated me in front of my boyfriend the day before and had been insufferable since they sold the car without my consent. So I really didn't want anything to do with them after this. They looked very upset while they were leaving, but at least this nightmare is going to be over now, and Tyler and I can finally go back home. Update 4. Hello? So a couple of weeks have passed, and we got the car back. It was in the same condition that we had kept it in, so thankfully, my parents didn't have to pay any damages. But they found out about the car just in the nick of time because if the guy had taken it on the cross-country road trip, things would have been much different. Anyway, my parents drove the car down to our place and tried to speak to us to apologize to me once again and get me to talk to them. But I told them that now that the car had been delivered, we had nothing more to talk about. They were really desperate too, and I could tell that they really wanted to continue being a part of my life because I don't think they are getting any grandchildren from my sister anytime soon. But Tyler and I made it very clear that we did not want them loitering around our house and made them leave by threatening to call the cops on them when they said that they were going to stand around until I forgave them and said that I would keep in touch as I had previously. It was their own rotten behavior that had changed everything for us, and they needed to realize and acknowledge that. Until they did so, nothing would ever change. Anyway, that was 2 weeks ago, and recently Tyler proposed to me, and we are hosting an engagement party at our place this weekend. Invitations have already been sent out, and I have heard from a couple of relatives that my parents and my sister are very upset that they did not receive one since they thought that at least something as big as this would make me reconsider our situation and I would extend a hand of peace towards them to make things right again. I would say it was a pretty unrealistic expectation to have for me because none of them had been kind to me, and Tyler and I were on the same page about whether we wanted them at our party or not. We didn't. It's a really important day for us, and if they can't be nice to me, they don't deserve to be around me. Besides, even if I thought about making things right with them and inviting them, then the day would become entirely about us and our family drama and not about our engagement, so we decided to steer clear of that. And they kind of shot themselves in the foot by talking about this to our relatives because they definitely didn't have any nice things to say about me. They thought that I was being bratty and kind of silly by blowing things out of proportion. Well, so maybe I'll just stay this way and keep my distance from them, and then they won't have to deal with my brattiness anymore. Now on to the next story. Story 5. Mill threw away my daughter's clothes and demanded custody of my kids while making a crazy social media post about us. Hey guys, so for context, we are a family of 4. It's me, my husband, and our 2 kids. My husband, 38M, and I, 36F, have been together for almost 11 years, married for 8, and my mother-in-law Pam has been a major pain for all 11 of those years so far. She had been tolerable, so we had been tolerating her because she had been very helpful at the beginning of our marriage, and we felt kind of indebted to her. That's why no matter how ridiculous she would act, we would always put up with her. After all, she had been there for us during our hardest times. On top of that, she was a widowed woman since my father-in-law had passed away a couple of years back, so my husband felt bad leaving her all alone. We would spend time with her whenever we could, but most of the time we're just relieved when we were not around her. It's not that she was a horrible person. It's just she knew the best and was never ready to hear anybody else's opinions. You know, the kind of know-it-all old people who think it is the factor that beats overall intelligence. That would be Pam. But because she had been there for us initially, we tried to be there for her because now she needed us more than ever. And she doted on her grandkids, so that was all the more reason for us to go see her at least twice or maybe thrice a month. My husband and I would just try to stay polite and nod along whenever she would say things that we did not necessarily agree with, just because we did not want to get into fights with her. We learned the hard way that arguing with her was not only futile but also riled us up as well. Now, however, I wish that I had taken a stand for the things that I believed in when I had the chance to, because maybe then she wouldn't have done what she did. Coming to that, I had mentioned that I have 2 kids, a 6-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. Both my kids love their grandma because, unlike us, they don't really know how judgmental and conservative she is. To them, she's just their grandma who always gives them what they want and lets them run around the house without any restrictions. About a month ago, my husband and I had to attend a wedding out of town, and our usual sitter had fallen sick at the very last minute, so we had to leave our kids with Pam. When we came back after 2 days and picked up our kids from Pam's house, the mood was very different from the time that we had dropped them off. We couldn't stay and chat with her that day because both our kids were clamoring to go home, and we had sensed that something had gone wrong while they were staying with their grandma because usually we can't get them to leave. But this time, everything was different. While we were leaving, I also realized that the bag of clothes that I had packed was considerably lighter, but I did not think much of it. It was only when I got back home that I realized that most of the clothes that I had packed for my daughter were missing from that bag. I searched the other bags as well, but those clothes were nowhere to be found. So I asked my daughter about it, and she very blankly told me that her grandmother had thrown them all away and had said that she was going to wear more feminine clothes from now on. Suddenly, it all started making sense, but I couldn't believe that Pam would do such a thing because it was crazy even by her standards. I mean, sure, she would say ridiculous things all the time, but this was taking things too far. Clothes definitely don't come for free, and my husband and I generally try to buy expensive and sustainable clothes so they can last for a while. For Pam to throw it all away, not only was it a huge waste of money, but it was also just unacceptable because of the reason that she had done it. I told my husband about it immediately, and we called her up, and she did not even bother to deny it. She told us that she did not think it was a good idea for us to confuse our daughter by dressing her in clothes that did not fit her gender. For context, the clothes that I had packed for my daughter were mostly oversized boys' t-shirts and loose shorts that also belonged to the boys' section. We let our kids pick out their own clothes, and my daughter picked these out because they were more comfortable for her compared to the clothes from the girls' section. It's not that she only dresses in boys' clothing. She loves wearing dresses and skirts and glamming up a bit when she's going out to fancy restaurants with us. But for daily wear, she prefers comfort, and I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And it's definitely not confusing my kid, as Pam says. Both my husband and I were very upset, and we told her that she had no right to throw all those clothes away because they cost a lot of money, and now we would have to go shopping again even though these clothes would not even fit our daughter for long because she was still growing. We told Pam that we expected her to pay us the money that she owed us for throwing those clothes away, and we also wanted her to apologize, not just to us but also to her grandkids, since they were very upset. At that point in time, we were willing to look past everything and give her a second chance, but she screwed it up by deciding to pick a fight with us. She told us that she was not going to give us any money and that she did not regret what she had done since somebody had to do it because this generation had gone too soft when it came to parenting. Instead of apologizing, she doubled down on what she had said and done and claimed that she was saving my daughter from a future of gender confusion, and if I couldn't see what was good for her, that was not her fault. When we tried to argue with her, she brought up the fact that she had supported us in the initial years of our marriage when we needed money because I was on maternity leave and my company was not paying me, and my husband's new business was not yet stable. And she was right. She had actually supported us. So we told her that we would pay her the amount that we owed her over the next couple of months until we were even, and right now we would start by calculating and subtracting the amount of money that she had thrown away when she discarded our daughter's clothes. I also told her that she was now banned from our household and was not going to be able to see our kids anymore since she had clearly traumatized them. Then we blocked her before we could say anything else. And I spoke to my kids once again to find out more about what had happened since I could understand why my daughter was upset. But I didn't know why my son was acting the same as well since all his clothes and toys were intact. Eventually, we were able to find out that Pam had made rather a spectacle out of the incident since she had called both our kids while she threw away the clothes that she did not approve of one by one. My daughter had started crying, and my son tried to comfort her and stop his grandma from upsetting his sister, but of course he was not able to do that, and Pam actually started yelling at both of them when they were crying, so they were even more traumatized. So both of them were very upset with her, and even while they were recounting this incident to us, both of them started crying. After that, there was absolutely no chance that I was going to allow Pam to have anything to do with our kids anymore, and my husband was, and still is, totally on my side. Once we had blocked her, she did not try to contact us, and we thought that she was going to leave us alone now. We had expected her to reach out within a week or so, but when that did not happen, we started to believe that she was done with us. Now, my husband and I had almost forgotten about her until a couple of days back when she visited us. My kids were not at home and were spending the day with my parents. Lucky for us, otherwise they would have to go through this ordeal once again. Anyway, both my husband and I were talking in the living room when the bell started ringing, and we could see from our windows that it was Pam who was standing outside. After some discussion, we decided to open the door but not let her in because we wanted to know what she was here for. She did not waste any time. As soon as we opened the door, she handed us some papers and said that she was there to demand custody of her grandkids because we were clearly failing at the job of raising them well. She said that she had already spoken to her lawyer and had come up with an arrangement that they would stay with her full-time until my husband and I had paid back all the money that we owed her, and after that we could have shared custody. She had assumed that it would take us a couple of years at the very least to put together the kind of money that she was demanding because she not only wanted us to return all the money that she had helped us out with when we were struggling, but she also wanted my husband to pay her back whatever his parents had spent while raising him. Obviously, that was an exorbitant amount of money, and it would take us ages to pay off that kind of debt. That was not even the crazy part of it. To me, the crazy part was that she thought this was a completely normal thing to demand and say. My husband was too shocked to say anything, so I told her to get out and that if she did not, I would be calling the cops on her. I was literally not interested in wasting my time speaking to her or trying to explain that this was ridiculous. There was no point in doing any of that. True to character, she refused to leave and said that she would not be going anywhere until we had signed the paperwork with our lawyer, because she thought that what she was demanding was completely fair. She said that we were obviously not up to the task of raising 2 kids on our own since we had gone so soft, and that was all that I needed to hear. I immediately grabbed my phone and called the cops, and even then she did not leave. She just stood there, refusing to budge, while I told her that I was going to file for a restraining order and make sure that she never got to see any of us ever again. In response to that, she said that she would like to see me try because it was not like she had hurt me or tried to do anything bad to us, and she was going to make sure that I lost custody of my children. She was really pissing me off, but I only had to wait until the cops showed up and dragged her off our property. That's when she started losing her mind. She had to be taken away kicking and screaming and cursing at us. I'm genuinely glad that our kids were not there to see that because they had already been traumatized by her once. I was not about to allow it to happen once again. Now, I personally don't think that I did anything wrong by banning her in the first place or telling her that I would file for a restraining order against her, and even my husband is on my side, even though he had been quiet the entire time that his mother had been here since he had been shocked to his core. However, the rest of my husband's entire family is against us right now. They think that I am being very ungrateful because I've completely forgotten about the fact that she was the only person who had been there for us when we were struggling to make ends meet while taking care of a newborn baby. But just because she had helped us out when we needed it, it does not mean that she has the license to run our lives, and I don't really know how difficult it is to understand for the rest of the family. Everyone has been badgering us relentlessly, telling us that it was really messed up for us to call the cops on her, especially when she just wanted to look out for us. Seriously, is this how people look out for each other now? By threatening to take their kids away from them until they return the money that they owe you? I don't buy it. My husband has obviously been the one who has been most affected by all of this because earlier he had pretty much been the gold standard for his family, and all of a sudden everything had changed. Everyone is hating on him and blaming him right now, and he's been finding it very difficult to deal with. But I'm not really affected by it because, well, it's not exactly my family. I keep trying to convince him that what we are doing is the right thing to do, and he agrees with it. He hasn't said anything otherwise, but I can tell he's very upset. That's what's making me feel like I might be taking it too far. I don't know. I know for a fact that if we cut off Pam and actually do go ahead and file a restraining order against her, the rest of the family will cut us off as well. I'll be fine with it. I just don't know if my husband will be able to deal with it as well as I do. So now I want to ask, am I wrong for wanting to file a restraining order against my mother-in-law? Date 1. Hey, so I decided to take the advice from the comments and spoke to my husband about what was going on with him. I had to try to speak to him earlier as well, but he kept insisting that he was all right and he would get over it eventually. Our kids had come back home, and he was still not back in his element, so I was obviously getting worried. And last night, after the kids had fallen asleep, I finally decided to confront him and ask him what was really going on with him, because more than 2 weeks had passed since our last interaction with his mother, and we hadn't even filed a restraining order yet because I don't know if he's okay with it or not. I told him that he could continue to pretend that everything was fine with him, but we had known each other for a really long time, and I knew that he was not fine. I told him that in order for us to deal with the situation, we have to first acknowledge that there is something wrong right now, and only then will we be able to fix it. So I told him that he needed to talk to me, and he finally did. At first, he just looked really sad, and I could see that he was silently crying while struggling to come up with the words, so I just sat by his side and comforted him as much as I could. My husband has always been very attached to his family, no matter what kind of people they are. I mean, who isn't? We all love our families, especially when they have only showered us with love and affection our entire lives. He had always been the darling of his family, and he told me that he was just finding it very difficult to deal with the fact that he might not be able to fix the situation with them ever again. Ideally, he would never have wanted a crisis like this to arise in the first place, but now that it had happened, there was no going back anymore. The reason he was actually sad was because he knew that he was going to have to cut them all out of his life, and he had already started the process, and it was not easy. It was actually quite depressing, so I could understand why he was so upset about it. He told me that so far, no matter how conservative and regressive his family had been, he had still been able to overlook all of it because of how much they loved him. But right now, that did not seem enough. In fact, it did not even cut it, because they had proven that when it came down to it, they valued their hollow principles more than they valued their relationships, and that was just sad. His entire family, including his mother, would rather control him than love him for who he is, and most of all, he was actually hurt by his mother's behavior. He said that so far, he had always accepted his mom the way she was. He had even gone so far as to try and understand why she had such awful opinions on certain things, and even though he did not agree with most of the things that she believed, he tried to be respectful of it. And she couldn't even extend that bare minimum courtesy to us. On top of that, she even expected us to put up with that sort of disrespect at the cost of our kids as well. He also told me certain things that had happened in the past that he had never shared because he did not want to stress me out or make me upset. But apparently, after my daughter was born, Pam had told him that she would want me to quit my job and be a stay-at-home mom, even though she had always known how much I wanted to work. In my family, it's a matter of pride to make your own money, and I wanted to make people in my family, and most importantly myself, proud, so it was very important for me to work. My husband told me that he had had to fight a lot with his mom to make sure that she did not say anything about it to me since I had just given birth and I was vulnerable. So he did not want her to make me upset by suggesting that I quit my job. He also told me that after I gave birth to our son, he had had to have the same argument with his mother once again, because this time she was much more insistent that I should quit my job and look after the kids instead. And yet again, he had to stop her from speaking to me about this because he did not want me to be upset. But this time he couldn't stop her. He told me that he was very upset with himself as well because he believed that he should have cut his mother off earlier rather than wait for so long until something awful happened. I finally hugged him after he was done talking. I told him that he was the best father and we were good parents. We did not have anything to worry about. So far, he had tried to be a good son as well, but now he had decided to be a good father, and there was nothing wrong with either of those things. Even though I had also tried to tolerate Pam to the best of my abilities because we were indebted to her, she had crossed a certain line, and we were completely justified in wanting to break away from her. So I assured him that he was a good father and a good husband as well, since he had done the right thing by not telling me that I should quit my job after I had my kids. That would put me in a bad situation because, on the one hand, I would not have wanted to cut her off after everything that she had done for me, but on the other hand, I would have really hated being around her even more than I already did if she bugged me about quitting my job. Anyway, we were able to talk things out, and he seemed to be in a considerably better mood this morning. So we are planning on going to the lawyer this evening and sorting things out. Update 2. Hey, so we spoke to the lawyer and asked him if we had grounds to file for a restraining order at the moment. Unfortunately, he had the same opinion that most people in the comments had, that we should refrain right now because we don't really have enough evidence to prove that she is a threat to us and our family. The only thing that she had done was show up at our house with paperwork and demand custody of our kids, and that's not really enough of a reason to ask for a protective order. He advised us to document all the interactions that we have with her from this point on, and if again we feel threatened by her, then we can definitely come to him, so that's what we are going to do. Ideally, obviously, we would not want her to bother us again, but if we are able to get her to stay away from us permanently, then I say bring it on. So far, it has only been my husband's family and his relatives texting him to tell him that he had failed as a son and stuff like that. But she hasn't reached out to us yet. We have blocked most of the people from his family who had taken her side, so right now nobody is bothering us. And either Pam is planning to do something big, or she has given up, since it has been pretty silent from her end. Either way, I don't really care. Speaking to the lawyer gave me an insight, and I know for a fact that now if she does anything, we can just record it, and she will be legally ordered to stay away from us. Then, my husband is doing a lot better since the last update that I posted, and I'm very happy for him that he's finally finding it a bit easier to deal with what's going on. A lot of people also seem to be under the misconception that he had forced me to keep in touch with Pam for so many years, and I would just like to say that's not true. It was a decision that both of us had made that we would try to be there for her and tolerate her. Like I said, we were indebted to her, so we had to. I now understand that it was not a good decision, but it's done now. I just wanted to clarify that it was not something that my husband had forced me to do. Both of us were equally a part of it. Anyway, if anything happens after this, I will let you guys know. Update 3. Hi guys, so in my last update, I had mentioned that Pam had not reached out to us after the last interaction that we had, and I had been speculating that she was probably planning to do something big. I was right, and I'm so happy that I predicted because I had thought she was going to do something dangerous, but instead, she made a complete and total fool out of herself in front of so many people that I can't even laugh out loud while typing this out. It's been close to 3 weeks since I originally posted here, so quite some time has passed since our last interaction with Pam. Last evening, we were watching a movie as a family when my phone started blowing up with notifications and messages all of a sudden, and then I turned to my husband and I noticed that he was on his phone as well, so obviously the same thing was happening to him. After we went online, we realized that we had been tagged in a post by an anonymous account, which obviously belonged to Pam, who had posted pictures of our family with this caption. This is what most people think a normal family looks like. But if you look closely, you will notice that a lot of things are wrong here. First and foremost, you can tell that a woman is a working woman because of her business formal attire. My question is, when did we stop trusting our husbands to bring home enough money to raise our children and take care of all the household expenses? When did we start feeling the need to go out and look for jobs ourselves? Is it because the men of this generation are so feeble and weak? I wouldn't know, but you had better ask these people. But one thing is for sure, we need to do something about this situation quickly because not only is this generation rotten to its very core, but they are spoiling the minds of the young ones as well. I mean, just look at the young daughter and what she's wearing. Back in our day, we used to dress our sons in such clothes, but now it's anybody's guess. It's just a total disgrace, and this is why our country can't make any progress anymore. If we want to restore our society to its former glory, we need to cut this out. Share this post if you agree with me and help me fix this family. If the rest of the post hadn't given it away already, shrinking the last line definitely did. It was obviously Pam, and I couldn't even be mad at her for posting something like this because it was just so hilarious that she thought this was going to work. Clearly, this was her definition of a petition, which would be laughed out of each and every court in this world. When my phone started blowing up with notifications, I thought something terrible had happened, but most of the messages that I had received were from people who were laughing at this post and asking me if I had seen this yet or not. It was the same with my husband as well, and when we looked at each other after reading that post, I think we laughed for about half an hour straight because we just couldn't stop. Even the comments on that post were just hilarious since a lot of our friends had seen that post because we had been tagged in it, and they were commenting with the funniest jokes. I know I don't have to, but I feel like you guys should be able to laugh along as well. Someone wrote, I propose we hop in our time machines and go back to bartering with livestock so we don't need 2 incomes anymore. Share this post if you agree with me. And another really funny one was, I can't believe women are wearing such clothes. What's next? Dad's wearing leashes. Outrageous. I mean, obviously it's all said in fun, and they were making fun of that ridiculous post, but we still made sure to take screenshots so we could send them to the lawyer. We are also going to reach out to her and demand that she take down the post, and if she gets aggressive, it's going to be great for us because that'll just give us a reason to file for a restraining order, and she will be done for. Date for. Hi everyone, so a little over 3 weeks ago, Pam made that really stupid post, and since then we have been able to get her to take it down. We filed for a restraining order against her a couple of days after that post. We called her up the day after she made the post and told her to take it down, but instead of doing that, she started cursing at us on the phone and said that she was going to make sure that we lost custody of our kids, and even if we didn't, she was going to ensure that they lived according to her by hook or by crook. And that seemed like kind of a threat, so we had recorded that phone call, and we sent both that post and the recording of that phone call to our lawyer, and he told us that seemed like enough of a reason to file for a protective order. So we went ahead with it, and after fighting for it for almost 3 weeks, 2 days back, we were finally able to get a restraining order against her for 2 years, and I'm going to count that as a huge win. Now, nobody from my husband's family is going to bother us anymore, and it's just going to be my kids and us, so we are quite happy about it. Now on to the next story. Story 6. Husband forced me into an open marriage and threatened divorce. I agreed, thinking I'd hate it, but I found an amazing partner and had the best segs of my life while he struggled to find dates. My husband, Leo, 34M, and I, 30F, have been together for 7 years, married for 4 of them. We don't have any kids, and we don't intend to. 2 years ago, Leo asked me for an open marriage. I was devastated at the time. I couldn't understand why he didn't just want me. I couldn't even comprehend the idea of sharing him either. He gave me the same song and dance a lot of men give their spouses. Swore up and down that he loved me, I just wasn't fulfilling his needs, he needed more than what I could give, it was just to spice up our life, it was just sex, etc., etc. I did ask if there was someone else. He said no. To this day, I'm still not sure if I believed him, but at the time I was angry and hurt and said no. He pestered me to change my mind for a week before giving me an ultimatum: open marriage or divorce. I chose the open marriage. I just couldn't bear the thought of him leaving me at the time. We have rules. We can't bring any partners home. We have to get tested for STDs every 3 months. 1 weekend out of the month must be left free for us time. Any money we spend on / with our partners must come from our personal accounts. I didn't partake in the open marriage myself for the first 3 months. Leo obviously did right away. He seemed to be gone or out late almost all the time, but he always acted so happy and loving towards me while I felt like I was dying inside. It killed me to think he was sleeping with other women, and I felt so lonely, unattractive, and not good enough. I told my sister, Katie, 26F, and a few close friends everything. Katie told me to just play his game and be part of the open marriage too. If he can sleep around, so could I. I honestly didn't have much confidence in myself at the time. I'm a bit overweight, and I've never considered myself conventionally pretty. I was afraid this would just humiliate me further. Katie and my best friend, Jessie, 30F, set up my online dating profiles for me. I got so many matches that it was overwhelming. When I told Leo, he was surprised but told me to do whatever I thought was best. Jessie helped me choose my first date, and I actually had a great time. He didn't pressure me for sex and took me out to drinks and dinner. We did have sex eventually, but it was all just casual, and we didn't see each other after. A couple months of casual dating that first guy really made me feel more confident in myself, so I kept going on dates with men. A lot of them wanted to treat me, so I didn't have to spend much of my own money. Not only that, but some of the men have given me the best sex I've ever had in my life, almost like the kind of sex you read in romance novels. It's been amazing. I am currently seeing 2 different men alongside Leo. One, Mark, 38M, is more of a steady boyfriend I've been with for about 6 months. The other, Steven, 25M, is very casual, mostly just hanging out and sex. They know about my open marriage and other relationships and are fine with it. My husband has not been so lucky. In the beginning, he definitely was. He was always out and about and didn't seem to care, even when I started dating too. But now, he just complains a lot and hasn't been going out much. He whines about how he's usually the one spending money. A lot of the women he tries to be with want an emotional connection before sex. He often wants to be with younger women, but they want younger men. He's also been upset that I go out with random guys so often while he's at home alone all the time. He hasn't asked to close the marriage yet, but I feel like he will soon. He keeps saying he misses us and wants to spend more time together. He tried to initiate sex a lot more, too. He wants to go on dates and go on vacations and all that stuff more and more, and he gets upset when I tell him I can't because I've already scheduled to do stuff with my partners. Mostly Mark, honestly. I don't think I love Leo anymore. I care about him, but I just don't love him. I'm not saying I love Mark or Steven, but I honestly feel closer to Mark nowadays than I do Leo. Mark makes me feel comfortable and safe, and I love spending time with him more than my own husband. Steven is funny and sweet and really good at sex. Katie and Jesse have been wanting me to divorce for a year now, but I was afraid of hurting him and thought I still loved him. But I think my love for him died when he asked for this open marriage in the first place. Seeing him get all pissy about it now just because he's not benefiting from it is also a turn-off for me, too. But I don't know if divorce is the best option. I still care about him and I still don't want to hurt him. Maybe if he finally asked to close the marriage, we can talk about it then. Comments. Comment. Divorce. You're happier without him. He would only want to close the marriage because he can't get laid. Not that he only loves you, OP. Comment. We've just been together for so long that the idea of him not being there feels weird, which sounds stupid since I have 2 other partners, so it's not like I'll be lonely. But Leo was a part of my life for so long that for him to not be there just doesn't feel right. But you're probably right. Comment. 7 years is not so long, considering you'll possibly live for another 50 years. Date 1. Hi, everyone. I got so many comments and messages on my last post, which got deleted for some reason, that I was a bit overwhelmed, especially when a lot of you kept saying the same thing, divorce, divorce, divorce. But the thing is, I think a part of me just still loves my husband. I know in my last post that I didn't think I loved him anymore, but I can't just forget about the things that I do love. I love when he sings in the shower. I love when he laughs so hard he snorts. I love when he kisses my forehead when I've had a bad day. I love when he holds my hand when we watch TV together. Leo has done a lot of shitty things, but he really isn't the big villain people think. Maybe that was my fault. But even if I do still love him, I'm not in love with him anymore. I don't think I have been for a while. Care about him. A part of me does still love him. But you all were right. I should have just divorced him when he gave me that ultimatum in the first place. This past Saturday we had the big talk. I initiated it, but he didn't seem too surprised. I just told him that I noticed he didn't seem to like me going out with Mark or Steven and asked if there was a problem. He said there was, but he didn't ask me to close the marriage. He just asked me if I still loved him. I said something like, not like I used to. He broke down crying, which made me cry. I guess he had known for a while that I wasn't in love anymore, but he had hoped he could win me back if he funneled all of his energy into me. I was honest and told him that during those first 3 months of our open marriage, I think my love for him died, and I just couldn't get it back. I did tell him that I still cared about him and that I did love him, but it's not the same as it was. He asked if I loved Mark or Steven, and I said no. I like being with them and I care about them a lot, but I can't say I'm in love with either of them. I also finally asked him why he wanted the open marriage in the first place. A lot of you in the comments said he already had someone lined up, and you were right. He had someone at work he was interested in, and she wanted him too. The open marriage was just to get permission. He honestly never expected me to also get my own partners because of how unconfident I was, but he didn't want to stop me either because he thought nothing would come of it. He didn't really like me seeing other men, but he knew it wouldn't have been fair to tell me no when I gave him permission first. I guess Mark and Steven made him insecure because I was spending so much time with them on a regular basis. The open marriage was just sex on the side for him. He only did hookups and they never lasted long. He genuinely always just loved only me, but he thought I was falling in love with my partners and he was losing me and wanted to win me back. We cried a lot and talked a lot. We've decided to get a divorce. Since the house is in his name, I'm going to move out and live with Katie for a while. He told me I didn't have to and I could stay until the divorce was finalized. But I just can't. It's too hard to even look at him sometimes. I don't know. I feel, to be honest, I thought I would be relieved or sad, but I'm just tired. I wish I could have been like you all wanted me to be. clapping back or being sarcastic and snarky or rubbing it in his face. But I don't feel like I've won anything. I just feel lost. Comments. Comment. Unfortunately, this is what happens when opening the marriage is not mutual. But you two are handling it as adults, and I hope that both of you find the happiness that you deserve, just not with each other. It's a shit situation where no one wins. Thanks for the update. Comment. This is an old tale and people keep falling for it. I was like, look at all these stories on Reddit. They all have the same ending. But people always trade 80% for 20% that they don't have. Comment. To _Serus. Can confirm. The 80% I get out of my relationship is great. The 20% I want that I don't get certainly has an effect on me and how I conduct myself in a relationship. That being said, I wouldn't throw away the 80% to get the 20% from somewhere else, as it would be a net loss at the end of the day. Update 2. I wish it was easy to hate my husband. Our marriage is over. We both talked about reconciling, but I just can't do it. I can't love him like I used to. I've officially moved out and am currently living with my sister. I wish I could hate him for everything, but I don't. I'm angry and sad and frustrated and devastated, but I don't hate him. I think everyone wants him to be the villain, but he's not. Clever enough for that. My husband was always short-sighted. He really never thought about the long term of things. His focus was always the then and now, not whatever came later because that was for later him to worry about. Now we're at the later, and it's awful. I wish I could blame him for everything, but he didn't slowly ruin or chip away at my self-esteem. He didn't break me down and make me hate myself. He didn't flaunt his success in my face. He didn't make me feel inferior. I came to him that way. He took advantage, but he was never hateful. Maybe I should have let him know during the open marriage how unhappy I was. I tried to hide it from him. He would even ask me, and I still lied. If I had been honest, maybe we could have closed the marriage. Maybe we could have just gotten divorced at the beginning. Maybe I should have negotiated better rules. I have so many maybes and so much blame for myself. If I had been more confident back then, maybe this open marriage never would have happened. But I blame him too. I hate that he let the woman come between us. I hate that he even entertained her flirtations and had discussions with her. I hate that he thought this was a solution and that I agreed because I couldn't bear the thought of losing him. But I don't hate him. I want to, but I can't. I know it'll get easier, but everything is so hard now. I don't know what to do when I feel like I'm crazy. I hope I can feel like myself again soon. Comments. Comment. Honey, he took your marriage hostage in order to get his dick wet whenever he wanted, fully believing that you would sit at home as a quiet little housewife and not be unhappy about what he was doing. He was selfish on a galactic scale, and he was the one at fault for this. A partner who actually cared wouldn't have held a gun to your marriage's head and said, either other women suck my dick, or the marriage gets it. There's no fixing that kind of selfish, and there's no way a marriage can survive it. He prioritized his wants, and when he realized it was a bad call, it was already way too late. Do not blame yourself for any of this because all you did was what he asked for. Now on to the next story. Story 7. Pregnant sister-in-law kept demanding our beach house room, then said my husband is her baby's father. I, 28F, have been married to my husband, Ryan, 30M, for 5 years now. Together, we have a wonderful but challenging 3-year-old daughter, Emma. Emma is autistic and nonverbal, which means our lives revolve around maintaining routines that help her feel safe and comfortable. Even small changes can lead to major meltdowns, so we've learned to be very careful about how we manage our environment, especially when we're away from home. Every summer, Ryan's family rents a large beach house for a 2-week vacation. It's been a tradition for over a decade, and while it can be chaotic, it's something we've always looked forward to. The beach house has 5 bedrooms, a luxurious master suite, 3 regular bedrooms, and a small room with bunk beds. Ryan's parents always take the master suite, and the rest of us draw straws for the remaining rooms. It's a system that has worked well enough over the years, with everyone accepting their lot without much fuss. This year, things took a turn for the worst when Ryan's older brother, Jason, 35M, and his wife, Lisa, 33F, announced that they were expecting their first child. Lisa is 7 months pregnant, and it's been a tough pregnancy for her. She's had severe morning sickness, constant back pain, and overall just hasn't been herself. Jason and Lisa arrived at the beach house with the expectation that they would get one of the best rooms, bypassing the usual straw drawing process. They claimed that Lisa needed a comfortable bed due to her condition, and everyone was quick to agree. But halfway through, Lisa changed her mind and agreed to participate. Ryan and I didn't mind, thinking that as long as we had a good space for Emma, we'd be fine. We drew straws and luck was on our side. Ryan, Emma, and I ended up with the best regular bedroom, which has an ensuite bathroom and a beautiful ocean view. The room was perfect for us, especially for Emma. The sound of the waves was soothing to her, and the ensuite bathroom meant we didn't have to navigate through shared spaces when she needed a quiet moment. Jason and Lisa got the second best room, which, while not as nice, was still perfectly comfortable. It seemed like everything was settled, but I should have known that with Lisa, nothing was ever simple. A little backstory. Before I met Ryan, there was history between him and Lisa. They had a brief fling the summer after college. One of those intense, short-lived romances that burns bright and fast. They met at a mutual friend's party and were immediately drawn to each other. They spent a few hot weeks together, but it quickly became clear that they were too different to make it work. Ryan was serious, looking for a committed relationship, while Lisa was more carefree and not interested in settling down. They ended things on relatively good terms, but there was no denying the chemistry that had once been there. Fast forward 7 years, and Ryan was now married to me, and Lisa ended up marrying Ryan's older brother, Jason. Awkward, I know. Jason wasn't exactly a looker with his balding head and large belly, but he made up for it by pandering to all of Lisa's needs. Back then, when Ryan and I started dating, Lisa was already part of the family, but there was always this unspoken tension between us. Lisa always acted like she was in some kind of competition with me, as if she needed to prove that she's better or more desirable. It's exhausting. I've never been the jealous type, but Lisa's constant need to one-up me had gotten under my skin more times than I cared to admit. One particular instance comes to mind. It was a few years ago during a family dinner. We were all gathered at Ryan's parents' house for Thanksgiving, and the conversation turned to our respective careers. I'm a graphic designer, and I had just landed a major client, which was a big deal for me. Ryan, being the supportive husband he is, proudly mentioned my achievement to the family. Lisa immediately jumped in, mentioning that her latest real estate deal had closed for twice the commission she was expecting. The way she said it, with that smug little smile, made it clear she wasn't just sharing good news. She was trying to overshadow my accomplishment. It was a small thing, but it was just one of many instances where Lisa seemed determined to remind me that she's always one step ahead. I didn't think much of it, especially during moments like this when I had to live in the same house with her. When we arrived at our room, things started off well enough. We unpacked, settled into our room, and began to unwind. Emma took to the new environment surprisingly well. She loved the view and spent a lot of time by the window, watching the waves roll in. Ryan and I were relieved. Emma's happiness and comfort are always our top priority. However, during dinner on the first night, things took a turn. Lisa began complaining about their room. She said the mattress was too firm, the room was too close to the street, and the noise was keeping her up. She also claimed that the mosquito problem was unbearable because she couldn't open the windows. Initially, we all listened sympathetically, but then Jason suggested that Ryan and I should switch rooms with them to make Lisa more comfortable. I was shocked. It wasn't just the request. It was the way it was presented, as if it was a given that we would comply without question. I politely declined, explaining that Emma was already settled in our room and that disrupting her routine could lead to meltdowns. I mentioned how important it was for her to feel secure, especially in an unfamiliar environment. Lisa's reaction was immediate and dramatic. Her face turned red, and tears welled up in her eyes. She accused me of being selfish, of not caring about her pregnancy and the health of her baby. Jason backed her up, saying that as a mother, I should understand how important it is for Lisa to be comfortable. They both acted as if I was deliberately making things difficult for them when, in reality, I was just trying to protect my daughter's well-being. Ryan tried to mediate, suggesting that we could switch rooms halfway through the vacation, but Lisa refused. She insisted that she needed consistency and that moving halfway through would be too stressful for her. The more she talked, the more I realized that this wasn't just about the room, it was about control. Lisa wanted what she wanted, and she was willing to manipulate everyone around her to get it. I've seen this side of Lisa before, but never so blatantly. She's always had a way of turning situations to her advantage, using her emotions to sway others. In the past, I've tried to be understanding, to rise above it, but this time I couldn't back down. It wasn't just about standing up for myself. It was about standing up for Emma, who couldn't advocate for herself. The argument escalated quickly. Lisa's tears turned to anger as she accused me of not caring about family, of putting my own comfort above hers. She even went so far as to say that I was endangering her baby's health by forcing her to sleep in an unsuitable room. Jason, who usually tries to stay level-headed, was completely on her side, calling me selfish in front of everyone. Ryan's parents, who had been listening quietly, finally spoke up, siding with Lisa and urging me to give up the room to keep the peace. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It felt like everyone was ganging up on me, completely ignoring the fact that I was only trying to do what was best for Emma. I stood my ground, repeating that we had drawn straws fair and square and that Emma's needs had to come first. I also pointed out that Lisa had been fine with their room until she saw that we got the one she wanted. I couldn't help but wonder if this was all just another one of her power plays, an attempt to prove that she could still have control over Ryan even after all these years. That night, the tension in the house was palpable. Ryan and I barely spoke before bed. I knew he was torn, caught between supporting me and not wanting to upset his family. He understood why I didn't want to switch rooms, but he also felt bad for Lisa. Her pregnancy had been tough, and he didn't want to add to her stress. But I couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just pregnancy hormones. This was Lisa being Lisa, using her situation to get what she wanted, no matter the cost to others. The next day, we had planned a family outing to a nearby seaside town. The atmosphere was tense as we piled into cars, with Lisa giving me the cold shoulder. During the drive, I could feel the weight of the argument from the night before hanging over us like a dark cloud. Ryan tried to lighten the mood by making small talk, but no one was really in the mood to engage. When we arrived at the town, everyone split up to explore. Ryan, Emma, and I decided to check out the local aquarium, hoping it would be a soothing experience for Emma. She loves fish, and we thought it would be a nice way to take her mind off the tension at the beach house for a little while. It seemed to work. Emma was mesmerized by the colorful fish swimming in the tanks, and Ryan and I were able to relax a bit, enjoying the peaceful environment. But our brief reprieve didn't last long. We met up with the rest of the family for lunch at a seaside restaurant, and that's when things started to go downhill. Lisa was in full passive-aggressive mode, complaining about everything from the weather to the food to the seating arrangements. She made a point of loudly mentioning how difficult it was for her to walk around town in her condition and how exhausted she was, casting pointed looks in my direction as if to say, "See what you're putting me through?" Her words were laced with venom, but they were masked with a sickly sweet tone that made it hard for anyone to call her out directly. It was when the waiter brought out the food that things escalated. Lisa took one look at her plate and wrinkled her nose in disgust. "I can't eat this," she declared, pushing the plate away dramatically. "It's too greasy, and the smell is making me nauseous. I thought we'd go somewhere that caters to people with special needs," she said, glancing at her belly as if the world should revolve around her pregnancy. If I had the opportunity to run her over with my car, I'd have shown her the true meaning of special needs. Anyways, Jason, always ready to defend his wife, immediately called the waiter over and demanded a new dish, something more appropriate for a pregnant woman. The waiter, looking flustered, apologized and hurried off to make the changes while Lisa shot me a triumphant look, as if she'd won some unspoken battle. The rest of the meal was tense and uncomfortable. Every time someone tried to steer the conversation to a more neutral topic, Lisa would find a way to bring it back to her pregnancy and how difficult everything was. It was clear she was milking the situation for all it was worth, trying to make me feel guilty for not giving up the room. After lunch, we all walked along the boardwalk, But the tension between Lisa and me was crazy. She made a show of walking slowly with exaggerated steps and frequently stopped to rest, sighing dramatically and making sure everyone noticed how tired she was. Jason hovered around her like an overprotective nurse, offering her water, asking if she needed to sit down, and shooting dirty looks at anyone who didn't immediately offer to help. Ryan noticed my frustration and squeezed my hand, offering a small smile of encouragement. He knew how hard it was for me to keep my cool in the face of Lisa's constant digs, but I could tell he was also worried about his family's opinion and didn't want things to escalate further. I appreciated his support, but part of me wished he would just tell Lisa off. After all, she was being unreasonable, and it was starting to wear on everyone's nerves. Back at the beach house, the tension only grew worse. Lisa's complaints about her room became a constant background noise, with her making offhand comments about how she couldn't sleep and how her back pain was getting worse because of the terrible bed. She didn't stop at just complaining to Jason, either. She made sure to mention it loudly when Ryan's parents were within earshot, casting me as the villain who was making her suffer. Ryan's parents, ever the peacemakers, started dropping hints that maybe we should reconsider switching rooms. "It's just for a few days," his mother said gently over breakfast one morning. "And Lisa is pregnant, dear. She needs her rest. You and Ryan are young. You can handle a little discomfort." I wanted to scream. How could they not see that this was exactly what Lisa wanted? She was manipulating everyone into feeling sorry for her, playing the pregnancy card to get her way. I knew that giving in now would only set a precedent for future vacations, and for our relationship as a whole. If I gave up the room this time, what would Lisa demand next? And how could I look Emma in the eye, knowing I'd put her needs second to Lisa's tantrums? Ryan tried once more to suggest a compromise, saying we could switch halfway through the vacation, but Lisa rejected it outright. "I need stability, Ryan," she insisted, her voice trembling with fake emotion. "This isn't just about me. It's about the baby. If I don't get proper rest, it could affect my health, and it could harm the baby. I'm sure your wife understands that, right?" Everyone looked at me, waiting for my response. I could feel the pressure mounting, the weight of their expectations pressing down on me. But I couldn't give in, not when I knew what was really at stake. So I held my ground, repeating that we had drawn straws fairly and that Emma's needs had to come first. I also reminded them that Lisa had been fine with her room until she realized we got the better one. Lisa stormed off in tears, leaving everyone else to pick up the pieces. Jason glared at me, muttering something under his breath about how some people just don't have any empathy, while Ryan's parents gave me disappointed looks, as if I was the one causing all the trouble. The whole situation was spiraling out of control, and I couldn't help but feel like I was stuck in a nightmare with no way out. As the days passed, Lisa's behavior only became more erratic. She started making snide comments whenever Ryan and I were together, hinting at their past fling in ways that made me uncomfortable. She would laugh and say things like, "Oh, Ryan, remember when we used to come to places like this? Those were the days, huh?" She always made sure to say it when Jason wasn't around, as if she was trying to drive a wedge between us. One afternoon, we had planned a group outing to a nearby nature reserve. It was supposed to be a relaxing day of hiking and picnicking, something that everyone could enjoy. But as soon as we arrived, Lisa started complaining about how she couldn't possibly hike in her condition and how we were being inconsiderate by dragging her out on such a strenuous activity. Ryan's parents immediately offered to stay back with her, but Lisa insisted that she didn't want to ruin the day for everyone else. "You all go ahead," she said with a forced smile. "I'll just wait here. Ryan will stay with me. He said something about having a headache earlier. We can catch up, right, Ryan?" Ryan looked at me, clearly torn. He didn't want to leave me alone with Emma, especially since she had been having a tough morning, but he also didn't want to upset Lisa. I could see the conflict in his eyes, and it made me furious. Why was he letting Lisa manipulate him like this? Why couldn't he see what she was doing? Headache my foot. She just wanted my husband to stay back. Before I could say anything, Jason stepped in. "No, Ryan, you go with your wife. I'll stay with Lisa," he said firmly. The look on Lisa's face was priceless. She clearly hadn't expected Jason to step up like that. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. But then I remembered how she'd been trying to use Ryan against me, and my sympathy evaporated. The hike was beautiful, but I couldn't fully enjoy it. I kept thinking about Lisa and the way she had been acting, the way she seemed determined to make this vacation all about her. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, that there was more to her behavior than just pregnancy hormones. Why did Ryan keep giving in to her, when he could have just cut her off? I didn't get it. But that evening, back at the beach house, the truth finally came out. It started innocently enough. We were all sitting around the living room chatting and watching a sad telenovela when Lisa suddenly burst into tears. At first, everyone assumed it was just another one of her mood swings, and the show was kinda sad. Jason tried to comfort her, but she wouldn't stop crying. Emma, triggered by her noise, also joined in, screaming her head off. It was chaos. Ryan dug through his pockets, pulling out a lollipop. I smiled gratefully, hoping it would do the trick and calm Emma down. But instead of passing it to our daughter, he gave it to Lisa. She stopped crying immediately, leaving only Emma's loud wails. I frowned in disappointment, looking at Ryan strangely while I cuddled Emma. Lisa pulled Ryan over, wrapping her arms around his torso as she sniffled. I thought it was just another move, but then she blurted out something that shocked us all. "I can't keep this secret anymore," she started, sobbing again. "I'm so sorry, Jason, but the baby, it's not yours." The room fell silent. It felt like all the air had been sucked out, leaving only a heavy, suffocating stillness. Jason stared at Lisa, his face a mix of confusion and hurt. "What do you mean?" he asked slowly, as if he didn't want to believe what he was hearing. Lisa took a deep breath. "It's Ryan," she whispered, bowing her head as if she was ashamed, but I could see her smiling. "The baby is Ryan's." My heart stopped. For a moment I thought I had misheard her, that there was no way she could have said what I thought she did. But the smile on her face when she looked at me told me she was telling the truth. Ryan looked as stunned as I felt. "What are you talking about, Lisa?" he demanded, his voice rising in anger. "How could the baby possibly be mine?" Lisa quickly changed her expression, gathering tears in her eyes like a paid actress. She talked about how, during a rough patch in her marriage with Jason, she and Ryan had reconnected briefly, just for one night. It had been a moment of weakness, a mistake that she now regretted more than anything. Couldn't breathe. My whole world felt like it was crumbling around me. I looked at Ryan, searching his face for some sign that this was all just a terrible misunderstanding. Lisa was a liar, and if he had said she was lying, I'd have believed him. But all I saw was shock and disbelief. Jason's reaction was even worse. He stood up, his face turning red with rage. "You slept with my brother?" he shouted, his voice shaking with fury. "After everything we've been through, you did this to me?" Ryan was still frozen in place. Couldn't believe it. The worst part? The look on Ryan's face told me everything I needed to know. She wasn't lying. I knew Lisa didn't regret anything. Yet I had to ask, when did that happen? She smirked, counting on her fingers. "A rainy night in June." I tried to do the math, wondering where I was when it went down. Only one night stood out to me, one night when Emma had a major meltdown. It was so bad that she was turning blue from crying. I had to take her to the pediatric unit. Ryan said that he was working overnight, and it was raining heavily, so I told him not to come. But he was actually balls deep in another woman. Ryan tried to explain, but before he could get a word out, I slapped Lisa across the face. I was furious, and honestly, I didn't care about anything but the betrayal at that moment. How could she do this to me? To our family? How could he? All I could see was red. Ryan tried to come near me, but I lost it. I swung at him, punched him, shoved him, anything to get him away from me. The man I trusted, who I thought was my partner in everything, had betrayed me in the worst possible way. The same woman he always told me not to worry about. Ryan's parents got involved at this point, and his mom had the audacity to tell me I was overreacting and that I needed to calm down. I was in shock. Overreacting? My husband had just gotten his brother's wife pregnant, and I was the one overreacting? Then, to make matters worse, Ryan's mom starts going on about how we need to think about what's best for everyone. And by everyone, she meant Lisa, the baby, and apparently them. She said that maybe this baby was fate, because Emma has been difficult and maybe this new baby would be easier or more normal. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Was she seriously saying that Emma isn't normal? That this affair, this betrayal, was somehow okay because of our daughter's challenges? My hands were shaking, and I felt like I was going to be sick. Ryan finally snapped out of his shock and tried to defend Emma, but his mom wasn't backing down. She kept insisting that we needed to be reasonable and think about the future. I was done. I couldn't take any more of this madness. I grabbed my keys and bolted for the door, pulling Emma along. Ryan tried to stop me, saying we needed to talk, but there was nothing left to say. He made his choice when he slept with Lisa, and now he can live with it. I left the beach house without looking back, barely able to get the car started because I was shaking so badly. I just drove, trying to put as much distance between myself and the disaster of my marriage. So, Reddit, AITA for losing it and leaving after finding out my husband is the father of my SIL's baby? I'm devastated and beyond angry, but a part of me wonders if I should have handled it differently, or if I'm justified in my reaction. I'm currently lodged in a nearby hotel, and my bags are still in the vacation house. Emma finally calmed down, and she's sleeping soundly, but tomorrow is a new day, and I don't know what to do. Technically, I'm giving Lisa what she wants by leaving my room and Ryan. Now on to the next story. Story 8. Wife was sleeping with other men behind my back for 13 years before she left me. Okay, so this is going to be long, very long. Hopefully, if you comment, you read over it. To start, I will contextualize by stating my wife just left me. I have had problems with her behavior for years, and it has been slowly eating away at me. I'm going to try to include all of my thoughts here to give a clear picture. I just feel like I need to get this out. Talking is how I deal. You will see that an inability to do this, along with a feeling something wasn't quite right in my relationship with my wife, had a lot to do with poisoning our relationship. We have, up to about a month ago, been married for nearly 8 years and together for about 13. So, to start, I began dating my wife when she was in her first graduate year of college. I can honestly say I was head over heels in love with her. Now, she was very much the opposite of me. I am introverted, opinionated, blunt, and far from charming. She is excessively extroverted, malleable to opinions depending upon the circle, and extremely high energy. I never, at first, though, took her for someone shallow, obsessed with opinion or superficial. Over time, that opinion has very much changed. I learned early in dating that my future wife was very sexually promiscuous. As a matter of fact, a good number of her friends were people she had formerly slept with, and she had a story of making out at one point with nearly every guy friend she had. Now, at this time, I thought, okay, she is a young woman in college. That is just normal behavior. I never thought of myself as a jealous person and had never really experienced jealousy. Again, this would change drastically. All names I use will be false, by the way. I don't think they will matter to those here anyway. So, to start, the very first week I was seeing her, she told me not to call or visit her because her close friend Jerry was coming into town and staying at her place. She said she wanted to be alone with someone she could relate to. I decided to put this to the back of my mind. After all, just because it was a guy, that didn't mean anything, right? Well, the reason this is bookmarked in my mind is because I would come into contact with Jerry a lot, and I found out that my future wife, I'll call her Alicia, had a past romantic history with Jerry. Further, their interactions in my presence would often be interesting. My wife's accounts often vary, so putting together exactly what was going on is hard to do. According to Alicia, she and Jerry had crushes on each other when she was dating her first boyfriend. According to her, though she had many sexual partners, only one boyfriend. The time frames on her relationship with this boyfriend differ on the account. Sometimes, she was dating him from her junior year of high school until her sophomore year in college. Another account had her dating him until her freshman year of college. She has said before that she used him, this boyfriend, sexually after they had split. She also said they were on again, off again. She also stated at one point that she and Jerry were behaving like a couple, but then he slept with one of her friends. But later, she said that she had betrayed him first. I kinda think she was sleeping with Jerry while her boyfriend was under the impression they were still dating. I am outlining this because I wonder if the same thing hasn't happened to me, if it isn't repetitive behavior. So, over the first 2 years of our dating, we were regular barflies. Alicia was an admitted flirt and often flirted in front of me. To put it lightly, she didn't just flirt in front of me but often spoke openly and in detail of her past sexual experiences with her former sexual partners. Again, often in front of me. Other than Jerry, she had one other recurring FWB I can name. We will call him Mark. Now, Mark would turn out to be a legitimately good person. We are friends to this day. At the time, I came to hate him. He made it a habit to talk about the things he and Alicia would do sexually, again with her and in front of me. It's hard to listen to someone in your girlfriend's past talk about the person you're dating sitting on their face, with her replying, "Yes, I was." Other things during these first 2 years would bother me. I would often meet her out to find her engaged in close conversation with a stranger and couldn't be bothered to say hello to me. She often ended up surrounded by an impenetrable wall of guys, and I wouldn't even be able to speak to her for hours. Whenever Jerry came over, he always took the seat closest to her, and they sat very close. When he played video games, she would bring him a bowl of weed and hold and light it for him. She would interrupt me to listen to what Jerry had to say all the time. For a time, Jerry was sleeping with the downstairs neighbor, but when coming to see her, he would always head upstairs to see Alicia first. On one occasion, her best friend came to visit her, and again, she did not want me to come over so she could be alone with her friend, this one a female school friend, but she ended up inviting her close friend Snyder as well as 4 other people over. She did this again on a night that was just supposed to be a girls' night. I was not to call her or visit. She ended up inviting 4 guys, not including me, to hang out for girls' night. I really was trying to let these things go, but it became harder and harder to ignore them. I was becoming anxious and insecure. Now, I should also mention I had a daughter that I saw every other weekend during this period. I fell into a period of unemployment. It was very hard to find a job, and I fell behind in child support. It was during one of our many recessions. At this point, Alicia was doing an internship, and I tried to maintain contact with her. It was disheartening, though, because whenever I called her, she sounded completely disinterested and would often carry on conversation with her friends around her while on the phone with me. One thing I took personally. I had to go to court once because I was behind on my payments. I almost went to jail but cut a deal with my daughter's mother. I had just found a job and asked her to give me 2 weeks to get together over $1,000. Naturally, I was stressed and ended up having to borrow money. I called Alicia to vent and maybe seek comfort, but again, she was not only disinterested. She was munching on her Chipotle and talking animatedly with her friends over the phone. No interest, no worry, no empathy, nothing. A few weeks later, she was going on a trip to an amusement park with people she knew from her internship. Again, she did not want me to come, but I found out others on the trip brought their significant others. Like I said, this crap builds and becomes hard to forget. She would also go to a Christmas party with Jerry, in which she admits Jerry was hitting on her. So now, let's skip ahead another year. She moves home, and we have a conversation about moving in. I get a small inheritance at the time that allows us to find a place. I get a job in her area and we move in together. After nearly 2.5 years of ignoring her inconsiderate behavior, I finally talk to her about how much her flirting bothers me. She tells me a story about being at a nearby bar while I was gone, and she stated she told the bartender, "I would totally fuck you if I was single." I basically said I didn't need to hear that, and the next moment she got pissed, started screaming, and claimed she never said that, when she had literally just related the story to me. I would quickly begin to find out that Alicia had no tolerance whatsoever for criticism to her character. She hates it and gets violently angry if questioned. Also, Jerry texts her late at night during this period, and I see what he texted her. "When do I get to see that fine ass again?" Time goes by and everything is actually all right. Better than before, in fact. We establish a close group of friends. She and my daughter are getting closer. There are very few, if any, fights. Everything is great. In this group are her cousin and cousin's husband. This is important, By the way, we'll call them Sunny and Sure. The only thing that was not great during this time was our sex life. For reasons I cannot explain, our lovemaking life wasn't just slowing down, it was completely stopping. Alicia had almost no interest in lovemaking. Well, after 3 years, about this time, the group of friends falls apart for various reasons. During this time, Alicia and I became engaged. Things were still pretty okay between myself, Alicia, my daughter, and our friendship with Sunny and Sure. After a few years, we got married, with Sunny presiding over the ceremony. Another year goes by, and things start to get dark. Very dark. Sure finds out Sunny has been cheating on her for years, and the two get divorced. Sure starts seeking consolation from Alicia, which is natural, they are friends and family. But then comes a very strange twist. Sure is going to totally satisfy her midlife crisis and begins to go out bar hopping and boy hunting like crazy. Now, that alone is not the strange part. She insists on taking my wife with her almost every other night as her wingman. At this time, I work a job that mandates sometimes 3 to 4 times a week. I'm there often from 3 p.m. to 7 a.m., and my wife is going out meeting guys while I'm at work. She is less interested in intimacy than ever at this point. She often says it is because she is tired, but she has plenty of energy for going out. At one point, she gleefully brags about a bouncer hitting on her and the bartender helping him along. Apparently, he told her, "Well, you must be here looking for something. I just want to say a few things about this incident. By the way, first, when I would go to this bar with her, she did seem awfully friendly with this bartender. Let us call him George. One night during her birthday, she basically jumped at him and gave him a very close hug. She would later say he hugged her, but she was so drunk that night she fell flat on her face before even getting to the bar. I was still very sober. When I vented this to one of her friends, all I had to say was Alicia and George, and this friend literally broke out into tears. This was the most suspicious part. Later, someone who knew my wife and held a party my wife frequented would show up at work. When he learned where I lived, he asked if I knew Alicia and her boyfriend George. This might have been a mistake, but it's a hell of a coincidence. Also, there was a joke around the bar that George was not well endowed, but he was good at other things. Well, later, Alicia would relate to me how disappointing it is to have sex with someone not very well endowed. She said she made love with this one guy who was small, but he was good at other things. I might be reading too much into that part. I don't know. Something else strange happened at this time. There was a period of 2 months where Alicia and I had literally no sex. Lovemaking had been an issue for years by now, but we had sporadic moments of intimacy. During this period, literally nothing. Well, what is strange is that Alicia missed her period for a month and was afraid she might be pregnant. Whether she was or wasn't, I couldn't help wondering why she would think it was a possibility if she was only sleeping with me. I brought it up once and she characteristically flipped out. After this, she would start taking birth control and our sex life still stagnated. Around this time, we attended a family wedding. I recall that after the wedding, she was drunk and started to talk about skinny dipping in the hotel swimming pool. My dad and brothers went to bed and so did I. I had been up for 24 hours at least because of work. She ended up going with my cousin's husband while I lay down. I actually woke up 2 hours later, and she wasn't there. She was in the morning, but she would go on to say they didn't go skinny dipping and she came right back, which I know isn't true. Later, Alicia would go to Sher's house for a pool day. She took my daughter with her. One of our acquaintances, let us call him Frank, was there. Well, Alicia tells me about how Frank and Sher were highly inebriated, and Frank hit on her right in front of my daughter. I would later mention this, and Alicia got angry because she was worried I would piss off Sher. Another instance. It was at this point that I realized my wife cared far more about what those in her social circle thought than what I did. Eventually, the going out all the time, including on my days off without me, stopped when Sher met someone new and eventually remarried. After that, by the way, Alicia almost never heard from Sher. I'm going to be completely honest. I started emotionally distancing myself and even numbing myself to the idea of my wife being with another person at this point. I was even trying to make myself not care about lovemaking. All of this was making me anxious. I even started having panic attacks. She would start to notice, too, the distancing, not the panic attacks. I told her about one I had when I was over at her cousin's on my break during a Super Bowl party. I had one before that. Of my previous job, I was sent to the hospital with extremely high blood pressure. I blacked out. So now, to the recent present, I am talking 2020 about now. A lot of things happened. I lost my job, got on unemployment, the unemployment was rescinded, putting me in debt. I was accused of endangering another person at work and ended up going to court, and now I'm on probation. I fell into a whirlwind of depression and anxiety. I felt paralyzed. I didn't want to even leave home. I was becoming short-tempered and unmotivated. All this during the pandemic. Alicia had started a new career and, being the extrovert she is, was not taking being stuck inside well. Before the pandemic got really serious, Alicia went to Florida for work training. There was a night when she went to a Caribbean club and was pursued by one of the patrons. Apparently, the chef came out to tell her how beautiful she was, which struck me as odd. If the chef was in the back, how did he know to come out and tell a random stranger how she looked? Again, maybe I'm reading too much into this. Well, she called me once in the night to tell me, "These guys are really making me want to smoke weed." She called me again, supposedly on her way home, when an unfamiliar voice started screaming into the phone. I mean, it was so loud. This person had to have his mouth to the receiver. Anyway, she called me back and told me it was the guy who pursued her. He was an Uber driver and pulled over on the other side of the street to offer her a ride. This is what she told me while she was drunk. Sober, she said she bumped into him in person walking out of the club, but when she talked to me that night, she said she was already out of the club walking home. We both started going to therapy. Well, in the months leading up to her leaving, she was staying at work later and later. She said that it was because she had so much work, but she had no problem getting out if there was a dinner with work friends or a ball game or something. I went to her work friend's house with her once, sober the entire time. They, at one point in the night, started intimately holding hands and staring at each other. I am not mistaken there. I saw what I saw. This was a female coworker with a boyfriend. 3 days following this, Alicia says to me, "You know, I would still totally have a threesome, just not with you. That would be weird." Alicia starts working out, spending more time on her appearance. She gets home later and later. I am working a 1 a.m. to 10 a.m. shift. She routinely gets home when I have only 4 to 5 hours. She went out one day to a 5-hour book club when we hadn't seen each other and got home right when I needed to go to bed. She refuses to be careful with her weed around the house, even though I am on probation. I mean, she hangs a bag of her stuff right by the door and leaves her grinder out. Any attempt I make to talk about it is met with rage and shouting. Anytime I vent, I am met with criticism and harsh reprimands, when she expects me to do the opposite and just listen. And I do for the most part. There are times when my frustration bubbles to the surface, and I snap. Not physically. I would never hit her. The only subjects she is interested in talking about anymore are her fitness goals and her job. She becomes increasingly more critical of me. This just causes me to be more silent and more frustrated. All the frustration comes to a head over a single incident. 2 years prior, I became my daughter's primary guardian, and her mom moved to Texas. Well, her mother waits to the last minute to schedule a flight, and the only days where work does not interfere with one of our schedules is on the weekend, her schedule in particular. Apparently, my daughter's mother could not find a weekend flight that was continuous. This was found out by Alicia, who decided to contact her. I'll be honest, I did not consider it our responsibility to arrange a flight for my daughter's mother. As a matter of fact, it is in the custody agreement that she is responsible for scheduling and finances and travel to and from Texas. Alicia does not communicate to me my daughter's mother's inability to find a weekend flight or that Alicia took it upon herself to reach out. Alicia also takes it upon herself to agree to a midweek time to take my daughter to the airport. What she does communicate to me is, my daughter's mother scheduled a flight to leave early in the morning on a Wednesday. The airport is 2 hours away. She tells me the flight will leave at 7 a.m. at the latest, and she expected to be home by 10 a.m. at the latest. Now, since Alicia had to work at 9 a.m., I figured she had arranged the day off, especially if she intended to be back at 10 a.m. at the latest. These were the talking points I was given and had knowledge of. Alicia got a hotel near the airport and asked if I wanted to come with her. I did end up having that night off. I had not, however, slept in days, was absolutely exhausted, and had a therapy session the next day at 11 a.m. Traffic in the area around the airport can get heavy approaching 8 to 9 a.m., and I was afraid of missing my session, which was part of my probation, meaning missing it could lead to a contempt of court order. In actuality, the flight was leaving at 6 a.m. I was not told this, and Alicia would get home at 8 a.m. However, under the impression she was counting on driving through heavy traffic after a flight leaving at 7 a.m. and planned to be back at no later than 10 a.m., I thought it would be cutting it close. I declined to go with my wife to the hotel. When she tried to ask me again, sleep-deprived and annoyed at her constantly leaving paraphernalia everywhere and paying no regard to my schedule, I snapped at her. She left angry, got back the next morning, and still went to work. She had not requested the day off and would not call off. That night, we had a conversation. She asked how long it had been since we had been happy. I told her since that time she was going out with her cousin. The weekend following, she stated that something broke her that night, and she didn't want to pretend anymore. She said she didn't think we should be together anymore and that when I told her the time for which I had been unhappy, it broke her heart. I asked her if she knew why I said that. She said no, and I outlined a good deal of what I wrote here, though not everything. She said she was going to her parents for a few days, then loaded up way more things than I felt she could have fit into her parents' tiny house. I haven't seen her since. She didn't even come to personally talk about our situation with my daughter after she got back, for which my daughter was devastated. I don't know for certain, but I can't help but feel there was something more to this. Maybe not, though. Maybe it was a series of really bad coincidences brought on by our differing personalities. Still, I can't shake the feeling that there is something else. Update 1. As many pointed out, it didn't really need to be confirmed, but my wife confessed to a friend that when she was going out with her cousin, she had a three-way makeout session. I'm guessing it was more than a makeout session with her cousin and the bouncer I mentioned in my original post. She was also recently caught texting her other lover before she left. I know people keep saying this is fiction, but it isn't. I'm furious, and I can't stop thinking about it. Not that my WS deserves forgiveness. That is not what I mean. I just don't want to think about her ever. I want her to disappear forever from my thoughts. I hate her so much, though. I hate her for dragging me around people she was sleeping with and probably laughing about it. I hate her for developing a bond my daughter doesn't want to break and leaving her after my daughter's mother did the same. I hate her for trying to make me feel like I was at fault and inadequate. Like I hope she dies. I've never hated anyone so much. Tomorrow, we are meeting to discuss possessions and details of the split. I think she wants to talk about what has been going on as well. I sent her a very angry text. It's going to feel like ripping open a wound, and I don't know if I'll be able to keep it together. Any advice? Coping mechanisms? Has anyone else felt so strongly that they despised their WS that they didn't trust themselves not to lose control? Update 2. I think I'm doing better. I'm not thinking about her all the time, and I'm excited to move away from this hell and get back to family and friends. But after weeks of ruminating, after discussing splitting our possessions, after really realizing that she walked away with no feeling after betraying and embarrassing me for years, this one thought still creeps into my head. She never really loved me. It sucks. It sucks because I could have spent 13 years either working on myself or finding someone who really did love me. Now, I don't know when I'll be able to trust someone the way I did her again. Update 3. So, it has now been 9 months since my wife left me, and I got confirmation of her infidelity. Maybe some of you remember my original post. I got the point. I ignored flag after flag. I understand. I processed. Some days I'm fine, but then others still I have a hard time. Today is one of those days. Every now and again, I'll remember a time where she was very intimate and seemed so sweet. They were only ever when we were alone, though. The time I'm thinking of was around our second year dating, months before we moved in together. The skyline at dusk reminded me. Corny as it is, she wanted to watch The Notebook with me, and so we did. I remember feeling sad and depressed that day, and I was just happy to be with her. She was so sweet. We cuddled close on the couch, had a mild night, talked, and just enjoyed each other's company. The skyline at the time we were done with the movie was orangish red. Like tonight. I remember we went outside to smoke a cigarette, sitting so close, leaning on each other. You know what she said to me? I hope we die together so we can be together to the end. How does a person go from that to being automatically promiscuous and entirely forgetful of my presence immediately in a social setting? Any social setting, every social setting, like flicking a switch. It's just so bizarre. Even acting embarrassed at my presence. Talking over me, just being awkward. Sorry, even after 9 months. It hurts when I remember the contrasting moments. I'm really just writing this to express myself. I wish I could do what she does and just forget like it's nothing. I still recall, 2 weeks after she left, she texted me. It doesn't have to be weird just because we're not a couple anymore. Like it was 13 years and we were married. How do you just do that? Like I said, not really looking for answers. I just wanted to write how I was feeling after 9 months. I shouldn't still be thinking about this stuff. Now on to the next story. Story 9. Found out my wife cheated on me with a friend of mine. Now her life is a mess, as my kids informed me. I, 35, male, was married to my ex-wife, 35, for 10 years. The two of us got married straight out of high school. People warned us against it, telling us it was way too soon, we should just wait, finish college first, start a career, and then see where we were at was what they wanted us to do. Me, being a fool in love, meant that I didn't care what any of them had to say. We had been dating since sophomore year of high school, so I thought I knew everything and found my forever person. My wife, at the time, seemed to be on the same page, so we got married and went to the same college. The two of us lived in married couple housing, which was helpful for us. Even though we were busy with college, I felt that our marriage was at its strongest in college. After we graduated, we got our apartment and jobs in our chosen fields. Things from there still seemed great. Slowly, we were building our future. The people who had been against us in the beginning and warned us against marriage were wrong. They had since come to support us. Her family was like my second family, so after marrying her, I did gain a lot more family members. It was about 1.5 years before our 10th anniversary when I noticed something was going on with my wife. She was more distant and didn't want me to ever touch her. I attributed it to me working a lot lately and just being very busy. I decided to make it up to her by planning a romantic night. She ended up not coming home that night and used the excuse that she was staying with a friend. Like I said, I had no reason not to believe or trust her, so I assumed she was telling the truth. The closer we got to our 10th anniversary, the more it continued. My wife was even more indifferent to me than ever and was hardly home. It was at this point I realized the chances of her having an affair was high. So, I used one of those Apple AirTags. I was ashamed to use it, but I had to find out. Instead of going to a friend's house like she said, she was across town, in the opposite direction. I drove there and waited for her to come out. She did come out, arm in arm with some heavily tattooed and pierced guy. Compared to my straight-laced self, who always played by the rules, it was quite a shock. I took a video and quietly drove home. When she got home, I didn't say anything, just played the video for her. After the shock wore off, she started yelling at me for planting an AirTag in her car and following her. It was creepy, apparently. The logic she was spewing was just very hard to follow. I just waited until she quieted and asked, "Why?" My wife claimed she needed someone more exciting and not as boring as I was. Working hard to provide a good life for us wasn't what she wanted. I pointed out that by working so much, I was able to help us afford a nice house, car, etc. But my wife just told me she wanted more. If what she wanted was something more than me, fine. True to her word, my wife wanted out, as quickly as possible. With me being the breadwinner, she could have gotten a lot of money and spousal support out of me. However, she seemed more focused on the ink being dry on the divorce papers than anything else. She wanted so badly to be with her precious AP, who was her true soulmate. I was just a stop along the way to finding him, her words, not mine. If that's what she wanted, then fine. The agreement ended up with me getting the house, the dog, more than half the money in the joint account. I was shocked that all she wanted was the car to be paid off completely. No alimony. I guess my ex wanted a complete break from me, which was why she agreed to such a clean split. Did it hurt? Yeah, of course it did. But if that was how she wanted it, then so be it. It was probably better for me as well to get a clean break. From the day our divorce was final, I had no contact with her, because I saw no reason why I should continue to have her in my life. However, we did have mutual friends, and I still kept in contact with some of her family members, so I was still privy to certain things going on in her life. Her AP, the new love of her life, was gone within a year of the divorce. He dumped her for someone else, which sent her into a tailspin. Since she had been staying at his place, it left her with no place to go. My ex couldn't go back to her parents because they had disowned her, pretty much, and still talk to me to this day. Last I heard, my ex-wife had been living in a small apartment with her sister and the new love of her life. She's working 2 jobs to make ends meet and is in debt. Had she pushed for more during our divorce, then she would have had more money as well as alimony to fall back on. I mean, I wasn't complaining, but if she had been thinking with her head instead of her heart, she would have been better off. To make it weirder, her new boyfriend has the same name as me. I'm not sure how to feel about that, so I choose not to think of it very often, or at all. It just seems a little taboo to date someone with the same name as your ex. Like, you wouldn't date someone that had the same or similar name of a family member, so why one with the same name as your ex-husband? It just didn't make sense to me. But then again, when it came to my ex, there were a lot of things I didn't understand and would probably never understand either. She was my past anyway, so I didn't need to worry myself sick when it came to my ex-wife. It's been a few years since our divorce, and while my ex-wife's life has been a downward spiral, mine has been great. I got remarried about 3 years ago, and the 2 of us are currently having our first child. Trusting another woman was difficult for me, so it took me a while to even think about dating again. My now wife was very patient, however, and was willing to wait for me as long as she needed. Eventually, I felt ready to date again, and it led to a second marriage. I've even reached a new level of success. My wife and I managed to sell the old house I had with my ex, buy a bigger one, have savings to spare. Both of us had lucrative careers, though my wife planned to go on maternity leave once the baby was born. If my ex knew about my new life, then she is yet to reach out to me. I doubt she ever will, which suits me fine. There is no need for her to ever speak again. But sometimes, I do wonder if she regrets having an affair and hurrying through a divorce so she could be with her AP. Chances are, my ex does regret it, but what comes around goes around. For my ex, truer words have never been spoken. Now on to the next story. Story 10. Wife cheated on me with her friend's brother, so I kicked her out immediately. Now she's begging for forgiveness, but I feel numb because she made me feel like a robot. I, 32M, have been married to my wife, Kate, 30F, for 4 years, together for 9. Our relationship has been amazing, loving, and supportive. We have good communication, hardly ever argue, and our bedroom life has gone from strength to strength over the years. We discussed cheating in the past, and I was always clear that we would be over if it ever happened. Kate went home to visit her family last weekend, which was fairly normal. Before she left on the Friday night, we had a minor argument about keeping the house tidy, so our communication was limited on Saturday. But I knew she was going out to meet some friends at a bar. I trusted her 100%, so didn't think anything of it. Before I fell asleep, I texted her, saying that I hoped she had a nice night. When I woke up on Sunday morning, I had a missed call from Kate at 4 a.m., so I immediately called her to check if she was okay, but no answer. After a few hours, I tried again a few times, but still no answer. Around an hour later, I got a message saying she was fine and was driving back soon. Kate got home late afternoon and looked awful. She had clearly been crying, was not wearing any makeup, unusual for her, and looked like a shell of a person. I knew instinctively that something was wrong, but she wouldn't let me hug her and would barely speak. I sat her down on the couch and made her some tea. I gently encouraged her to tell me what was wrong, and she burst into uncontrollable tears for at least 10 minutes while I was trying to comfort her. She then proceeded to tell me, stopping every few words, that she had slept with someone last night after the bar. At that moment, something in my brain broke. I can't describe it any other way. I immediately got up, jumped in my car, and drove off. I went to a park and walked around it for about an hour. Kate was calling my phone constantly, and I turned it off. When I got home, I grabbed 2 suitcases from the garage and went to our bedroom. I threw some of Kate's clothes and shoes into them and left them by the front door. Kate was lying on the floor in the living room, curled up into a ball, sobbing. I called her best friend, who lives nearby, and told her that Kate needed a place to stay and a ride to her place, and that Kate could explain everything to her later. I told Kate I was leaving for an hour and that her friend was coming to pick her up. She grabbed onto my legs, trying to stop me from leaving. When I returned home again, Kate was gone, and so were the cases. On Monday, with a clearer head, I answered one of Kate's many calls and told her that I needed her to send me an email with as much detail as possible of that night. And if she leaves anything out, there will be no hope of reconciliation. I received this email on Monday night, but still haven't opened it. Since then, everyone has been trying to contact me, but I have just been working, exercising, and sleeping. One of her friends turned up at my house with an attitude, demanding an explanation. I told her to speak to Kate and closed the door in her face. I have also been speaking to divorce lawyers, have moved money into separate accounts, and blocked Kate and all of her friends on everything. Everything I have done since I found out seems like I've been on autopilot. I don't feel angry, upset, or overly emotional, just numb. Kate posted a note through the door yesterday, asking me to meet tomorrow, but I'm conflicted. Should I meet her? Will it change anything? Is there any point in trying to reconcile? Is it normal to feel like a robot? How do I snap out of this? Edit. I just want to add that when I came home the first time, Kate confirmed it was consensual. She was drunk but knew what she was doing. Comments. Comment. Hey, I am really sorry. I will speak from experience. Being numb after finding out was one of the main feelings that you will have, and it's totally okay to take a pause for as long as you need before you make a single decision. Need months? Take months. You don't owe anybody anything at this moment. Good job setting up boundaries. Regarding whether to read that email or not, think about it before doing so. Generally, there are 2 types of people. 1. The ones that want to know as little info as possible. 2. The ones that want to know every single detail. I personally did want to know every detail. I would say it helped me, definitely caused me to imagine how it happened many times. But sometimes I wonder if I would be better off not knowing. She does seem remorseful. She did admit it herself, and as soon as she could, in person. This will ruin things big time. The magic will be forever gone. I promise you 100%. Trust will never be back again, but 90 to 95% is possible. But there will always be that doubt in your head every time she leaves the house. You can definitely live with it. You can become stronger as a couple even in some areas. That's all possible and will tremendously depend on her, the work she is ready to do. But unfortunately for you, you will have to do a lot of work too. It will seem unfair, but that's reality. We all said that we will never forgive infidelity, but I tried staying. I stayed for 1.5 years, did the work, read the books, watched videos, did a lot of talking, etc. I personally couldn't get over it. My psychotherapist said that everybody takes it differently. Some can live with it, some cannot. I took it as 10 out of 10. It made me a shell of a person for those 1.5 years. It affected my next relationship. If you can take it, if you can do the work, if you know she will give you the compassion and understanding, that she is ready to do anything to help you, it might be possible. But keep in mind that post-infidelity relationships are very different and have very different rules. If you decide to go to psychotherapy, get the one that specializes in infidelity. Whatever will be required to reconcile could be considered controlling and unhealthy by regular psychotherapists. I hope you the best, my friend. Comment. If you have someone you trust, I recommend that you spend as much time as possible with them. You say that right now you don't feel anything, but sooner or later the feelings are going to hit you, and if you keep them all in, it will be worse. Date 1. After reading your comments, I decided to meet with Kate but not read the email. Kate came to the house yesterday, and when I opened the door, she looked terrible. She tried to hug me and started mumbling apologies, but I stopped her, and we sat down to talk. I started by telling Kate that I would be recording the audio of the conversation, and she agreed. I then asked her to explain what happened and told her that I haven't read the email she sent. Kate said she had been at the bar with two friends, I know and like both of them, and told me what she had to drink. I was surprised at how little she drank because it was the same amount we would normally drink when going for dinner, a few glasses of wine and a cocktail. She admitted she was only slightly tipsy. One of her friends, Sarah, has a younger brother, Max, 27M, who came to pick them up around midnight. It's a running joke in their group that Max has had a major crush on Kate since high school, and I had heard them joke about this. The four of them went to get some food, and Max then dropped each one off until it was just him and Kate. Kate said she didn't want him to drive the 20 minutes to her parents' place after working all day, so she would just order an Uber from his apartment. She went into his apartment to order the Uber but couldn't get one. Max suggested she should crash in his bed, and he would take the sofa. He would then drop her off in the morning. Kate refused and continued to try to find an Uber. They were sitting on Max's bed, and he kissed her. She kissed him back, and they ended up having sex. She confirmed again that it was consensual. After that, she broke down crying from guilt, and Max took her home. She cried for another hour, then tried to call me to tell me what she had done. We had to stop a number oftentimes because Kate kept breaking down and crying hysterically. She told me it was a huge mistake. She got caught up in the moment. It was terrible. She only loves me, blah blah blah. After she was done, I told her that her story didn't make sense, but it didn't matter at this stage because I was done. This caused another breakdown. I told her I was going to continue with the divorce preparations, but for the next month, we would be separated with no contact. I also told her that 1. We would both remain faithful. 2. We would get a full STD panel. 3. She would tell our mutual friends and family what happened. If she sticks to these conditions, I would be willing to meet again to see if there was any way forward other than divorce. She enthusiastically agreed to this but made it clear that she did not expect me to stay faithful to her. I know many of you will criticize this decision, but I need to be sure that divorce is the right option after I have had time to process everything that has happened. I am still 99% sure that is where we are heading, but need to be 100% certain. Edit. Just to clarify, because many of you seem to be focusing on this point. I've had mutual friends and my wife's family send me nasty messages, turn up at my house, etc. because according to Kate, I kicked her out over an argument. My request was that Kate tells them it's because she has been unfaithful, not a full rundown of everything that happened. Comments. Comment. So there's a running joke about this guy wanting to bang your wife. Then in the middle of the drive home it's determined that 20 minutes is too far because he worked all day. Then the solution to that ends up with them sitting on his bed? The logic leaps for this to be believable are miles wide. Almost 100%, the sequence of events did not happen that way. Comment. Cheating partners always offer a hall pass so that they can later say they aren't the only ones who did wrong. Don't take her up on it. Opie, I don't intend to lower myself to her level. Even if I wanted to, I can't see any woman wanting to jump in the sack with an emotionless husk. We have reached the end. If you enjoyed this video, please be sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like this, and give us your thoughts about the stories in the comments section. Thank you and see you in the next video.